ladies and gentlemen, the mayor has called the meeting to order. Mayor Davey?
Here.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Here.
Councilmember Laredo?
Here.
Councilmember London?
Here.
Councilmember McCormick? Here. Vice Mayor Moss?
Here.
Councilmember Segurola?
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, Reverend Mandy Brady with St. Christopher's by the Sea is not with us this evening.
Okay.
The next item is brief comments by council.
Right. Well, we lost really one of the.
May I interrupt you?
I'm sorry?
Jude, maybe you can lead us in prayer. Even if,
Well, I was just going to say a moment of silence.
no, I mean in terms of.
Well, no, the invocation is the
I-
invocation. I'm not an invocator.
Okay.
But Ron Herbal passed away on Sunday. Many of you knew him. He was really just such an important part of the fabric of this community. He had so many hats. He did so many things. He was just, I don't know anybody who knew him who didn't like him. He was just a great guy. I'm very sorry for our loss. I'm very sorry for his wife Victoria's loss and his family's loss. He means so much to so many people. I know, we could spend an entire council meeting having people talk about Ron Herbal and all the great things he's done for so many people in this community. So I'd like to have a moment of silence just to remember Ron. And thank you.
Thank you.
Go.
Excuse me, I'd like to interrupt you. If we had 2 meetings now in a row, I believe, where the invocator was not able to attend, which is fine, but I kind of like to have an invocation at every meeting. If they don't call ahead to say they're not coming, or?
I was told that she would be here.
So she must have had an emergency.
The invocation that you gave at the League of Cities was
Excellent.
quite well done. Do you have any of it in your mind?
No, it's a good practice, I think, for us to kind of get centered. That's all. I apologize.
Okay. Anybody else, or should I move to public comments?
Well, as long as we were on the League of Cities, that was really, it's wonderful for us to be able to host that event and host 33 other municipalities and representatives of the county. Actually 32. Unfortunately, the city of Miami wasn't there. But it was a nice night. And quickly, a public service announcement, thanks to Prudence Gill. On April 20th, I believe it's at 7:30, on WLRN, there's an airing of a documentary about Bill Baggs that ought to be quite interesting. A nervous man shouldn't be here in the first place. The life of Bill Baggs. April 20th, 7:30.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, let's move to public comments.
Next item, public comment.
All right, I've got a few speakers signed up. Pete, if you want to just do the roll on the Zoom call.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you watching us on channel 77 on Comcast, channel 99 on AT&T Uverse, or streaming us live via our website. If you do wish to make a comment at this meeting, please dial the following phone number: 305-365-7569. Then please enter the meeting ID of 231-627-8415. For those of you currently in the meeting wishing to speak, please either dial *9 on your telephones or just raise your hand within the Zoom app.
Okay, I've got 3 speakers signed up here thus far. The first is Carl Sennstrom.
Yes.
Come on up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak, please.
My name is Carl Stenström. I live on 710 Harbor Drive. I am only here for one reason, and that is what I perceive to be an incompetence by the police department when it comes to Hurricane Harbor. The noise in this harbor where I live is, and I'm not a whiner, I'm not a complainer, that's not my personality. It's incredible. It goes on Saturdays and Sundays from 3 in the afternoon till midnight. And I'm calling and asking for the police to stop by, and the patrol boats are down, and there's all kind that you're just not there. And if you have a patrol boat, you quit working at 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. You know, I'm paying $100,000 in real estate taxes, and I find this to be very, very troubling. I am of certain age, and my wife is too, and we live in this so-called Paradise Island, which became an inferno for us. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Julius Walecki?
Good evening. My name is Julius Walecki. I live at 251 Galen Drive. Really, first of all, I wanted to say I'm relatively new resident here in Key Biscayne. It's a beautiful community, and I wanted to thank all of you for your commitment, your hard work. The only problem that I have at my location is noise from tennis / paddle ball courts at Ritz-Carlton. I don't know whoever approved this so close to our bedrooms, but at this time, I'm unable to use my bedroom. I had to move my bed to my living room. I actually emailed all the council members, so you may be familiar with my complaint, and something needs to be done because it's really not acceptable that we just have to go with that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, excuse me.
No,
1 second. On the agenda tonight, I've put in to revisit the noise ordinance. So we will be discussing the noise ordinance tonight.
next, Luis Velasquez.
Hi, good evening. My name is Luis Velasquez. I live in 251 Galen Drive, just like Julius does. It just so happens that we were running into each other every once in a while. We were talking about the noise was getting very excessive due to the new paddleball court. So I decided to reach out to the Ritz-Carlton, and to no avail, nobody from the Ritz themselves has gotten back to me yet. But from the Cliff Drysdale tennis courts, 2 people had approached me. And one of the things that I asked them were the hours, and at first some of them didn't even know the hours. So what's going on is that they're operating before 7 a.m. and they're operating past 11 p.m. and even on the weekends they're playing past 7. So it's first of all, it was the paddleball court was kind of annoying when it started, but now the noise is just at whatever time they want. So we approached them, and they tried to see how they could fix the hours. They were saying something about the lighting and that the lighting's under control, but they're basically doing whatever they want to do. So to see if you guys can help us out. So noise is getting really out of control whenever they want. And I know that I'm sure you have a noise ordinance till 11 p.m., but I wanted to see if we can work on something like that since those tennis courts face our bedrooms, to see what we can do about that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Pete, do we have anybody signed up?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No or one?
No, sir.
No. Does anybody else want to speak in chambers? All right, I'm going to close public comments. We will have another public comments round later on this evening.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the agenda. Approval, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
Okay, anybody have any substitutions, additions, deletions?
I just wanted to either now, if you can, or not too late, I wanted to see if, I serve as the liaison with the Parks and Public Spaces
Okay.
Board. And I think we have an outstanding citizen that is convinced to give of his time.
Okay, submit a name, submit the name to me.
I have, twice already. I don't know what's happening.
I forwarded your email.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
apologies.
Carlos de la Cruz Jr. who
I know
happens to be
Carlos. Well-
president of the- But I mean, it's been a couple of meetings.
Okay, I apologize. I'll bring back next meeting with all the proposed names,
Okay. And remember also,
because our EAB also has to be redone.
okay, and the magistrates board, also Bill Kraus has been pending for a while. Just, you know,
Right.
we talk some of the people to get involved, and then we kind of,
No, that's on me.
so you cannot do it today?
No, I can't do it today. I got a bunch of people, but I promise you, next meeting, I'll have my lists and we'll go through them. Anybody?
We need a second.
No, there's no additions, deletions.
I haven't heard anything.
What's that?
I moved it. I haven't heard any.
Second.
All those
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
What was the motion?
Just to move
Set the
the agenda.
agenda.
Oh, okay, with the agenda, okay, all right.
Do you have
let's
any
move on.
changes?
No, there were no changes. Let's go.
And the next item is a special presentation, a status update on Bear Cut Bridge, a presentation by Miami-Dade County Department of Transit and Public Works Director.
So, Mr. Mayor, council members, I'd like to introduce the Director of Public Works, Euless Cleckley from Department of Transit and Public Works, Miami-Dade County, and he has his folks here today to give us a presentation on the way forward on Bear Cut Bridge. And this is following from Commissioner Regalato's directive to move forward after Rickenbacker Causeway decision.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the Village Council. I'm Euless Cleckley, Director of the Department of Transportation and Public Works for Miami-Dade County. And thank you, City Manager Williamson, for inviting us here today. We are pleasure to have our staff here to present a status update of the Bear Cut Bridge. We definitely understand that this is an important link to the village here, and we want to take the opportunity to present an update of the next phase of the project. And we have Ryan Fisher, who will be providing the detailed presentation for you today. Just as a point, we do value the partnership. We do have good relationships. I'm a relatively new director here for the county. I've only been here approximately 7 months, and this has been one project that's been on the radar, and we value good partnerships with all of our municipalities within the county. And so we look forward to that continued partnership and making sure that we advance this project appropriately. So with no further ado, I'd like to present Mr. Ryan Fisher, and he will walk through today's presentation.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and staff. We appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to thank the public for coming out tonight as well. I have my presentation. It's been a few months since I've seen you guys, so it's good to be back. Next slide. So I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to what we're doing, where we're at with the plan, as well as what will be presented as part of the directive. So the presentation outline will go over the bridge history, the current rehab, or the current plans for rehabilitation that we're currently designing, the directive for the planning study, the planning study scope and the schedule for it, as well as our next steps, and then any questions you guys may have.
Great.
Maybe I can see. So a little bit about the bridge history. It was constructed in 1944, the old section. In 83, it was rehabilitated and widened. In 2013, it went through a major rehabilitation as well as a widening at that time. That rehabilitation included things like cathodic protection, as well as deeper foundations on the widened sections. And then currently under design today, we're in the process of designing a rehabilitation just to ensure that this bridge is in good condition for the next 7-10 years. We did make a decision to scale back that rehabilitation and use those funds to fund the future design and construction of the, and as well as the planning study. So we've scaled back. The rehabilitation will be good for 7 to 10 years, but we didn't want to go and do repairs and more cathodic protection, which is corrosion protection, to make the bridge last 25 years, because I don't think that's a good use of the funds. So that's where we're at. You guys, I'm sure I'll be back here presenting the MOT and the plans for that rehabilitation project. We're going to replace some expansion joints, so that's the only impact you guys should see on the top side. Otherwise, it's just foundation repairs as well as the beams. Next slide. So on January 19th, 2022, the commissioner gave a directive to prioritize a plan and provide a plan to prioritize the replacement of the bridge. It just so happens I came into the county 2 years ago. I came from the state, and I knew the condition of the bridge and the age of the bridge. So I had already requested that we start to put together funds for this planning study. So the funds are available today to begin the planning study. So based on that directive, we're going to provide a report to the board, which is pretty much the next couple of slides. And to be eligible for state and federal funds, we have to follow the state and federal processes. So that includes a PD&E for FDOT, which includes then further a NEPA for the feds. So that PD&E and planning study will include the environmental. It'll include alternative analysis. So they'll look at a no-build option. They'll look at a rehabilitation option, and then they'll look at replacement with likely multiple iterations of replacement, different styles of bridges, different sequence of constructions. So that's kind of where we're going, and we have to go through that process to be eligible for the federal funding for the project. So the scope, and this is what you'll see when it goes to the response to the directive. We've completed the scope of the project, and we broadened the scope a little bit to include the Bear Cut Bridge, as well as if we were to issue another work order for any of the other bridges along the causeway. I believe the title of the funding I have available also includes the West Bridges by the toll booth, because those are of similar age, at least the old one is, and they may need to be looked at as well. So we'll develop the notice to professional consultants to seek a consulting firm. That package is being put together today in April, and then we're looking to award to a consultant for that planning study, PD&E, and NEPA conceptual design and permitting in about January of next year. We hope to be completed. We hope we can move quickly through that process. I don't think it's a highly complex PD&E. There's going to obviously be environmental impacts that need to be studied. There will be mitigation, most likely, just based on the location, corals and possible seagrasses in the area, and those are all taken into account. So 2 to 3 years, I would say, on that PD&E study. With a project, if we really want to expedite it, design build will likely be the fastest way. However, that's a decision that the director as well as our commission will have to make in the future. And that if we were to go that route, we could be into the design build and construction in 2026. You'd probably have a design build period. If not, we think you'd likely see probably 1.5 years of design and then and 2.5 years for the construction of the project. And it'll look at different alternatives by closing half of it, removing half of it, putting in a temporary bridge. So that planning study will look at all those different options. Next slide. So we set aside $5 million. I'm really hoping it doesn't take all $5 million to perform this PD&E study, but we'll start the work immediately once we have a consultant. I have done a pencil estimate previously for the bridge. It was probably right in the middle of COVID, and it was somewhere between $80 and $90 million. So I'm leaning towards the high side of $90 million. That is going to all depend on a lot of factors, whether a temporary bridge is feasible, if that would be the preferred method of trying to replace this thing, or whether you go a higher level bridge, a lower level bridge, a wider bridge. That's all going to impact your square foot and your budget. So Rough estimate at 90 million. That may be a little low, to be honest. I think it'll probably come in, especially if you're talking, 5 to 6 years down the line. I think it'll be a little bit higher than 90. The planning study will include public input. So as any PD&E goes through, we'll meet with all the stakeholders. We'll meet with all your local homeowners associations, special interest groups, bike ped community. We'll meet with all those throughout that PD&E process, as well as always during design of the project. And out of this, you'll receive, or we'll produce a conceptual design that will then proceed into either final design or design build. So the one last bullet on the last slide was we'll continue coordination with the village. I met with the village manager on a couple of items and topics since I've came. I met you, Mr. Mayor, as well. So we'll continue that coordination. We'll ensure we engage all your stakeholders, and you guys can provide us the list for our consultant once on board, and we can make sure we do this right? That's what we're looking to do here. And that's why I didn't want to limit the scope of what I put into the scope of the PD&E, because we may want to look a little further out. We may want to look a little further back, and I didn't want to set those limits too rigid as we move forward in the process. So with that, the last slide is just kind of the hierarchy of the department right now, and my two PMs are listed there. One would likely be the PM of this project, and then the other is Jacqueline is the current PM for the rehab project that we're planning. So I'd be open for any questions for myself or the director.
Well, first, thanks for coming out. Thanks for including us. Thank the mayor. Thank our commissioner for helping push this, because this is critical to this community. I mean, you all know you came over it and you got to go back out over it. So one way in, one way out. I mean, you can swim, but it gets a little dicey at night swimming around here. But thank you. Councilmember Laredo, I think you had a question?
No, I just want to echo what you said, and also we've told the director, if you get up, please, to the people who are here, citizens of Key Biscayne who are watching us, that we are very thankful of the cooperation we've gotten from you and the last issue and this. It's a new era of working together. People, two county and the village, our mutual goodwill is beginning to pay off for our citizens and the citizens of the county. We really deeply appreciate it. The effort in coming today is a wonderful opportunity for our citizens that we represent to know that things are moving in this thing, so that we appreciate that from the bottom of our hearts. I think I speak for all of us, and certainly for the people of Key Biscayne. Thank you.
Councilmember London?
Listening to you, it sounds like one way we might have a bridge by 27, by 30 to 2030. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It will all depend on the procurement. Obviously, if we have to procure a design consultant towards the end of the PD&E, as well as then a contractor, based on the relatively high value of the contract, each one of those will likely take 6 months to a year to procure. So it'll depend. It'll also depend on the class of action that's determined by the lead federal agency. If they, if it's an EA, the process is more likely 2 years. If it's an EIS, the process could be 3.5 years to do that NEPA and get your clearances for NEPA. So a lot of it's going to depend on the determinations that are made during that planning study.
Does it sound reasonable, though, in any event, we should have a bridge by 2030? Worst case.
A new bridge by 2030? I mean, you should, but
2032?
I can't make any guarantees.
Nobody's guaranteed. Educated guess. How about that?
That's all we're talking about.
Yeah, I'd say a reasonable guess. You're talking 2030, 2031, 2032, and it's going to depend on the design and the sequencing and the phasing. It's not a small project. It's a large project, and it's in a sensitive area. So it's not like you can stage your barges any one place too long due to the corals and seagrasses that likely exist.
And then the other question is rehabilitation you're going to do to the bridge. Will that affect our traffic at all?
We're going over the scope with our consultant. Originally, we said no, but after taking an in-depth inspection and look at it, we do need to replace a lot of the expansion joints on top side. So we can have the conversation, I can reach out, we can have the conversation of when the best time to do that is, whether that's nighttime.
Yes.
The contractors probably prefer like nighttime because they can take 2 lanes nighttime and they can get more work done at night. So I can, if that's your guys' recommendation, I can put that in my plans.
We have a traffic problem during rush hours.
Yeah.
If it's possible.
It would never be rush hour. We would limit it 9:30 to 3:30.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kaplan and Councilmember McCormick.
Also, thank you. It's been a saga, and we appreciate the chance to connect with you guys as frequently as possible, and the more communication, the better, obviously. It's self-evident, and you mentioned it, but the useful life after this rehab is about 9 years, maybe?
So once bridges get to this age, once you're talking 65, 75, 85 years old, you start to have to increase your periodic repairs, such as corrosion, right? That rebar's corroding. It's in saltwater environment. So at this age of the sections, that's 1944, and now some of the 83 repairs are widening. It's needing maintenance. So at this age, you'd start to do it every 7 to 10 years. You could keep it going, but at some point it becomes not cost effective to do so. So the real solution, if you wanted it to last 25 years, would be to put an impressed current cathodic protection system on the whole bridge. It already has part of it from the 2016 work or 2013 work, but yeah.
I think from 2013's perspective, if I remember correctly, we targeted 2022, which is where we are now.
Correct.
For something, we thought at the time it would be a replacement now, looking at it from that point in time. I get the idea of rehab, but if we're going to be utilizing the current bridge as rehabilitated in 7, 8, 9, 10 years from now during construction, it's obviously going to have to hold up for that purpose.
Correct, and you'd start to look at that. So it's inspected every 2 years. It's in pretty good condition because it has been maintained pretty well. So you start to look at that maybe in 4 years, and you start to maybe scope the next project and then seek funding. And then, in 7 to 10 years, you'd want to be back on it. I don't think it's a critical nature. It would go 20 years, but without any maintenance. But the amount of money you have to spend then to get it back into any sort of shape gets astronomical. So it's just keeping up with that maintenance. And we'll take a look at it again in probably 4 to 6 years and say, okay, now we have this list of issues. We had a list of the targeted areas we wanted to make the repairs, and that's when we did the inspection. We said, well, the expansion joints also needed to prevent the saltwater from getting down on it.
It's reassuring that that's part of your plan.
Yeah.
Last question. I also think from 2013 that Westbridge had some rehabilitation work done in 2013 as well.
Correct.
Same point, the projected life of that rehabilitated bridge then was approximately now.
So phase 2 of these Bear Cut rehabilitation, it's actually a 3-phase project. Phase 2 is the West Bridges. So we'll go back in there, we'll take a look at the piles. We'll take a look at the piles, we'll make the spall repairs we need to, and likely that one we may put the cathodic protection on, or at least pile jackets.
What about the Powell Bridge at the same time?
So we just finished the rehab on the Powell, and that's phase 3. So, and that's how it is. That's kind of how it goes once you get to the age of these bridges. Powell has some unique characteristics that require a little bit more maintenance than your standard inland bridges. But that's kind of the cycle we're going to be on every 10 to 15 years on Powell, every 7 to 10 years on Bear Cut and West until they're replaced.
Councilmember McCormick?
Well, my question was answered in that explanation, but I would like to take the opportunity to thank you for coming and to just add that I'm happy to hear the part of your process that involves input from stakeholders, because I know that's very important to our residents, and we are, never shy with our input. So I'm happy to hear that that's a part of the process, and also really glad to hear us talking about the West Bridge as well, because, we typically keep saying Bear Cut, Bear Cut, Bear Cut, and we need to get all the way there and all the way back. So thank you for coming.
Appreciate you.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is
Thank you very much.
a special presentation by Markham LLP Accountants, reference Village of Key Biscayne fiscal year 21 audit.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Village Council members. My name is Mo Riza. I'm with the firm of Markham LLP, and my colleague Rachel Johnson has joined me as well, and she's one of the audit managers as part of the audit team. And I'm here today to present the annual comprehensive financial report, which should be having been included as part of your agenda package. So I'm going to make reference to certain page numbers. So if you want to follow along, I'm going to turn to printed page number 1. On printed page number 1, you find our independent auditor's report. On the first paragraph makes reference to the report on the financial statements, makes reference to what we've audited, which is fiscal year ended September 30th, 2021. The second paragraph, titled Management's Responsibility for the Financial Statements, makes reference to what management of the village is responsible for, and they're responsible for preparing this document in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. And the third paragraph, titled Auditor's Responsibility, makes reference to what we, Markham, as your external auditor, is responsible for, and we're responsible to issue multiple opinions as you have multiple funds. If you turn the page with me to printed page 2, you find the opinions paragraph, and it reads as follows. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly non-material respects, the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, and each major fund of the village as of September 30th, 2021. And that is an example of a clean opinion or unqualified opinion, and that is the only opinion you want to be associated with. What we performed was a financial audit, and when it comes to a financial audit in accordance with auditing principles, this is the highest regard that one could receive. So congratulations to the village, to the elected body, and your finance department, and your village manager's office. Following the auditor's report on printed page 4.
You want to repeat that? What you just said?
What I was making reference to is we completed a financial audit. And
no, just your lottery board.
Just the nice happy part,
Yeah.
slower
I wanted you to slow down in case people were...
So what I was making reference is that the village received a clean opinion. When it comes to an audit report, that is the highest regard that we can receive. A clean opinion with no internal control deficiencies, no findings, no non-compliance. So that was what I was making reference to. If you turn with me to page 4, you have the management discussion and analysis. And this document is over 100 pages. But if you'd like to read a summary of your current year activity, I suggest you read the MD&A, which starts on page 4 and takes us to page 13. And the nice thing about the MD&A, some people refer to it as an executive summary. It summarizes your current year activity, and it provides a current year analysis against your prior year activity. So it provides a quantitative variance analysis, but it also shows you or provides an explanation of what drives the changes. What is driving the operational changes of the village for fiscal year 2021 as compared to 2020. Following the basic financials and the footnotes, I would like to make reference to our compliance reports, which start in the back, the reporting section on printed page 96. And on printed page 96, we make reference to the government auditing standards report. This makes reference to deficiencies, which there were none at the bottom of page 96. We say that during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies. And on page 97, we have our compliance paragraph. And yes, we did perform a financial audit. but we are required under government auditing standards to test compliance. So the activity and transactions that occurred during the fiscal year, we're required to test them not only for financial accuracy, but to ensure they're in compliance with rules, laws, and regulations under the state of Florida. Following the Yellow Book report, if you turn with me to printed page 100. On printed page 100, we make reference, this is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. This summarizes all the federal award funding that the village has received and expended during the fiscal year, which is just north of 3.5 million, with the large portion being disaster relief funding received through the Florida Division of Emergency Management of nearly 2.4 million. And that program in itself was tested. Those were disaster relief funding for Hurricane Irma and Dorian, as well as the funding received from the Highway Planning Construction Cluster of $821,000. That was tested, that was passed through the Florida Department of Transportation. So what we do with those grants is these agencies give these awards to the village of Key Biscayne with the promise that the village would use them for the intended activity. So we sample size the activity, the expenditures, make sure that the vendors were approved by the elected body, make sure that there was competitive bidding, and make sure that the activities that are being invoiced or what this funding is being used for comply with the underlying grant agreement. And as mentioned on page 102, we have no items to report for any prohibited transactions. The other document that was released simultaneously with this report was our communication letter. And although I am presenting to you today, we did release this report a couple of weeks ago on March 31st. And on that day, we also released our communication letter. The communication letter is something that is required by our auditing standards to summarize the audit and some key elements. One being if there was new accounting principles. There was one that we consider to be significant, which is in the accounting industry, it changed the name and title of this document. It used to be called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, known as the CAFR. Now it's no longer being used. That term is no longer acceptable. It's now titled Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or the ACFR. Also in that letter, we make reference to any disagreements with management in regards to the recording, disclosing, or reporting of a transaction. And pleased to mention, we had no disagreements on how to record a transaction, disclose a transaction in the financial statements in regards to comparing our results to your finance department. And then lastly, in that letter, we mentioned if we had any difficulties throughout the process of the audit procedures. And pleased to say we've received all the help that we needed from the finance department and your village manager's office. They were able to provide us the information in a timely manner to make sure that we stayed with the timetable that was desired by the elected body to ensure that we finish our audit on a timely basis. So that pretty much summarizes the annual financial report, and I'll open it up now for any questions.
Councilmember London. Let's just get these out of the way. You know, the rest are going to be softballs compared to this.
You may want to sit down.
Yeah. I knew you hadn't met with Ed because you said it went really well talking to everybody in the village. So you haven't talked to Ed directly yet.
Actually, I was impressed.
Put that on your resume.
No, very little.
Ed, I think
The land trust, we have 3,744,000, and basically a number of places refer to it as 2 million and change. There's a discrepancy of about $1.2 million when you got to your financial statements. I'm sure there's a simple reason for that.
What page are you referring to?
Right now I'm on page 11.
Second
under Parks, Recreation, Open Space, Land Trust Fund. And then go to page 14.
On page 11, the second paragraph
Yes.
titled Pros Land Trust makes reference to fund balance of 3.7 million.
Yeah.
That is also on printed page number.
Well, go to page 14.
Page 14 is the
Open Space Land Trust near the bottom, 2,000,005.
Correct, but that's the government-wide. In government accounting, there's two financial statements. There's one based on full accrual that considers long-term assets, long-term liabilities. That amount is being referenced to modified accrual on page 16. On page 16, if you turn with me, you find the balance sheet for governmental funds.
Yeah.
And there's
3,753,000.
yes, 3,744,682. Printed page 16, the third fund.
Yes.
I could clarify or add a sentence on page 11 with direction of the finance department if you want
That's all
to
right.
clarify.
I'm sure they have a reason for it.
Okay.
The other thing is that we've been, I don't think this is you, but we've been led to believe that we've not been charging enough permit fees, and as a result, we're running negative in that department. And here it looks like when you look on page 15, under building, zoning, and planning, the expense is $1,748,000, and they brought in $2,040,000, which indicate to me a $300,000 surplus. I don't know, but then again, that's not you, but you've reviewed this, and what's the answer? They make a mistake?
Yes, for fiscal year 21, there was a surplus.
I'm sorry?
For fiscal year 21, there was a surplus in the building fund.
Okay.
This is after fiscal year 20, where we landed, there was $600,000 in the red when we experienced COVID, when we had no economic activity with the building permits. So when we brought forward the building permit analysis, we wanted to charge a rate that would hold us through any of those difficult times, whether it be a hurricane or it be any other stoppage in permit activity. So yes, well, 21, there's a lot of pent-up demand that didn't happen during 20 that got shifted to 21. I don't think that would be sustainable going forward for years out. So we're trying to build something which smooths that number, and obviously we'll analyze it at the end of every year to see if we get to the point of too much surplus. Obviously, we would look at reducing the fee going forward.
So, Mike, but we were told, and I think we all voted to go ahead with an increase based on the idea that we were losing money in that department. That was supposed to be a break-even department. And, you know, pandemics every 100 years ago. And as far as hurricanes, they usually average 27 years for bad ones. So why would we raise our rates to cover things that happen very rarely? So our citizens have to pay more for their permits.
Well, the idea is here.
I don't want to get off the subject. We talk about that later. But that's one of the things I gleaned from this thing. The other thing, which was something new to me, excuse me, and that is the, I guess, our liability for, where is it? For, post-retirement expenses. And you deal in that, you talk about the, we have a legal obligation to provide that? That is for the OPEB.
The total OPEB liability. So under the state of Florida, Florida statute requires that a local municipality offer the option for your retirees to access your health care. You're not required to cover their health care premium. You could require a portion, zero, or all of it. Every municipality has a different plan provision. Based on the current status of the OPEB plan for the village, it's not being funded. So this is an actual liability, not a true liability that this is an assumption that one day this will be fulfilled.
Well, I read further here that one of the reasons we have a liability, even though they're paying the premium, because generally the census of retirees is older and it's more expensive.
Correct.
So would we be fair charging, since basically we know what each person should pay actuarially, because they do that when they put together our package? Is it okay for us to charge what it costs so the village doesn't incur that liability?
Correct. So we service about 51 municipalities in the state of Florida, and they all have different plan provisions. Some of them covering zero, some of them covering 10%, some of them covering 100%. Okay. That being said, as you can tell, if you're covering a larger portion, your OPEB liability will be much more significant. And also, it's not fair just to look at the premiums. It's also fair to look at how each municipality is funding that. In the current state, the village of Key Biscayne is not funding their OPEB liability. And some plans are being funded, but currently the other post-employment plan of the village is not being funded. There's no requirement to be funded, because that being said, you have to look at the probability of how, based on an actuary study, what is the probability that your retirees in the future will actually be included into your medical health care premiums.
So with financially, and so we know what we're really doing and not kicking the can down the road.
Correct.
Should we provide for that annually in our budget?
Yeah, so just to be on record, the village currently does not subsidize post-employment health insurance. The employee who retires has the option to pay the full weight, which is the village and their employee portion, should they retire. Obviously, like you mentioned earlier, actuarially, yes, an older employee has more claims, and that's why there's a small liability
exactly,
here.
that's what I'm saying.
In terms of charging them based on that, I mean, it's a very sensitive issue. We have employees who are currently working for the village from 25 years old to 75.
I'm not saying the employees. I'm saying we're incurring the liability. So when we budget, so we know what things are costing us, should we, and knowing actuarially that older people have more medical care than younger people, should we include that in our budget? That's all.
It's something we'll consider. I know when we looked at the figures last year, I think we only had 2, it was less than 5 employees, I think, that were actually on the post. So at this point, I don't think.
You think it's insignificant?
It was insignificant.
Okay.
If it gets to the point where it's significant, we can look at it again and budget for it.
Okay.
Just to clarify, it's not a liability like a bond or no payable that is actually held by a third party or a financial institution. This is just an amount that is calculated based on future assumptions of what the population is tending to do, predictions in the future. It's not a true liability that is due currently.
Okay. Well, the compensated absences, how's that calculated?
Do you want to go? Compensated absences is an accounting term for quantifying.
I know what it is. Okay. I'm asking, how is it calculated? Is it calculated when the gentleman did not take his absence, so to speak, and he made X dollars?
Yeah.
Now, 10 years from now, he wants to cash it in. Do we keep accruing each year to increase it by the increase in wages?
Correct. So just to start off, for the record, the compensated absences is just an accounting term for your vacation accrual, your personal time off accrual. The village provides us a listing of all the employees, their beginning balance of earned compensated absences, their current year additions, which is how much hours do you earn per payroll register or per pay
So you adjust it every year?
Correct. And then
that's the answer.
So
that's enough.
Told you. You thought I was kidding, didn't you?
When I'm looking now at am I looking at proprietary funds? Proprietary funds, this is for the page, see, I got 2 things. On page 19, proprietary funds, stormwater utility and solid waste. I'm looking at the solid waste, and based on what our gross is, it looks like we have 7 months worth of receivables. Does that make sense? I mean, to me, that means that we're not collecting anything. I mean,
correct.
You're running a business that people haven't paid you in 7 months?
Yeah, and I've been communicating this from this very day. It's almost every month. I think I give a report on this. I keep reporting on that accounts receivable amount that we've had from going past to village inception to current. So we've gone back, billed interest and penalties.
Well, what are we doing about collecting it?
We're going to.
We are going to. So we've sent letters updating the balances to the right property owners. We had a lot of systematic errors. We were addressing it to the wrong person. Property had changed hands. So we're placing liens on.
So there are liens now on everybody's property?
Not at this moment, but we're getting that process. We have to go individual account by individual account for all 13. I mean, there's 1,300 total residences, about 400 or so that have some delinquent amount. So sorting from high to low, we're going through them one by one to to lien. You have to ensure you have the correct amount.
And the stormwater, they're only 2 months. So is that normal too?
That's normal. So that did come directly from the Miami-Dade County, and generally it would be two months in arrears. Now that we're billing and collecting straight with the Dade property appraiser on the tax bill,
so that'll take care of that.
That'll take care of that.
Good.
Correct.
All right, going to the next side of the page, where you have your operating expenses to operate the business, and you look you have general and administrative. Well, in effect, we basically subcontract the trash collection to somebody.
Correct.
So we really don't know what our overhead is here to basically administer that. So I would like to see that broken down. When you look at general administrative and you look at 987, the solid waste, okay? So we don't really know from an efficient standpoint, are we wasting a lot of money or are we being efficient? Because basically most of the money is going to the subcontractor.
Yeah, the majority here goes to the subcontract. There is a small portion
Well,
of
that's what-
village
you know,
staff
that's what
that's
I'm saying. It
assigned
should
to
be broken
manage
down,
that
that's all.
contract and have oversight of the contracts. There's a portion of salaries that goes in there as well.
Well, that's what
I
I'm
can give you the
talking
break, in the financial report, it shows one number, but we could give you the further breakdown.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, this, I'm not good with numbers, but on page 50,
Yes.
the loan is payable. This is the fire equipment revenue bond. First paragraph, starts third line from the bottom. The loan is payable in semi-annual payments
Yes.
over 11 years, beginning October 21, an interest rate of 1.7464% annum. The loan matures October to 2030. Is that a balloon?
No, the following table at the bottom, following that paragraph gives you the amortization schedule.
I'm sorry?
You're mentioning the fire equipment
I'm
revenue
just, all I'm
bond.
saying is that 11, to me, 11 years is 5.5 years, right?
Correct. So if you look at
I
the
mean,
bottom,
11 years would bring you to 2032, not 2030.
no, this is fiscal year. So this financial statement is as of September 30th, 2021, which is the fiscal year end. So at the bottom, it shows you your amortization schedule. Government accounting standards should tell you to reflect to the reader the first 5 years, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and then to combine 5 years. So that is your correctly presented the loan maturity for the fire equipment revenue bond, series 2021.
Okay. So, but, all right, never mind. Disagree, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'll let you go. That was a good report. Thank you.
Thank you
I
for
know
allowing
that's
us
time
to
to
be
read.
of service. And if any questions
Well,
arise after
we're
today,
not done. We just gave you the hard ones first. Now we get into some fun stuff. Councilmember Kaplan?
I just thought while you're here to anticipate one point.
Okay.
Later this evening, there's a presentation that's coming out of the Charter Revision Commission, which is going to include an observation, a recommendation concerning our debt cap.
Okay.
I'm under the impression, after lots of study, comparison with other cities, and my understanding, to the extent that it's rooted in many conversations with people that know more about the subject than I do, that the recommendation, if it's adopted, would be well within comfortable parameters of governmental accounting standards.
So just one of the things that we do in regards to that is under the Florida State Auditor General, we're required to compare the village to its peers. Not as a competition, but we just have to make sure that you're comparable to, and we do that by comparing you based on your taxable value, your taxable property values, your population, and what type of accounting funds you have. Some of your peers are the village of Palm Beach, the town of Palm Beach, city of Sanibel, city of St. Pete Beach, town of Surfside, city of Treasure Island, city of Atlantic Beach, city of Fernandina Beach, village of Indian Town, town of Longboat Key, town of Lauderdale by the Sea. And one of the things that we analyze is making sure that your property capitalized, your net investment in capital assets are not deteriorating, making sure that your proprietary funds or your enterprise funds are being operated and not creating a deficit in fund balance. And if we have any issues, we have to bring them to your attention in one of the compliance reports in the back. I think it's page 99 in this document. And as mentioned in that document, we have no concerns or items of concern. Just to be fair, I do know a little bit of the history of the village, and It's typical if you compare yourself to the village of Key Biscayne to some of your peers. Usually, when you issue debt or bonds or notes payable, and you think of a balance sheet, you think about I'm acquiring debt, but I'm also increasing my capital assets or some type of physical property. A couple of years ago, as you remember, for your school revenue bond, you issued that debt, but you didn't have the physical property of that building that stayed in another entity at the county level. So you have to take that into consideration. And when we did our analysis, we also took that into consideration, because you got to understand the village and the operations of it to understand this is not something unusual. This is not something to be a concern. This was intentionally done to fund for the school.
That's an interesting point. It causes me to observe that the the obligation bond that was approved in the last election is all oriented towards certain types of projects that will inure to the capital value in the village, capital assets in the village.
Correct. And many years ago, when the school bond was issued, for accounting purposes, you didn't see the positive of having that capital asset. It was at the school district level.
That asset was more social, psychic, functional.
Correct.
I take your point, though.
Okay.
Council, Vice Mayor?
A quick question for clarification, and thank you for putting, our team with the finance manager. Thank you for putting this together and getting it to us so quickly. Quick question on page 81. At the bottom, the debt service as percentage of the non-capital expenditures, last year we were at 5%. That 5% is basically what we have in the charter, which keeps us at the 15%. Within that, my understanding is the previous year's expenditures. I just wanted to know if that is the number that we would look at when we're borrowing.
So in our charter, it looks at, I think at least it looks at all operating expenditures, so it'd actually be a small
Yeah, it says
portion.
in the charter
So
it
here
says
looks
the
at only
amount.
non-capital.
Yeah, the amount which would cause annual debt service to equal 15% of general fund expenditures for the previous fiscal year.
Or
right?
1% of the.
But because
Or
the charter
1%.
number says the
Whichever is
greater
higher.
of the two, that second factor really falls off because 1%.
It would be the greater of the two.
Property value is much greater than
Okay.
15% of our general.
But that number, I just want to know that number is the number we'd be looking at.
Yes, I want to clarify this. This statistical table is based on government accounting standards, so it doesn't show you the full picture because these are only governmental funds. These are not including your proprietary funds, so it doesn't give you the entire
So it's
picture.
not exactly.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Councilmember Laredo?
No, I guess, Ed, you and I joined this council 3 years ago. This is worth the time I put into it. 3 years here, we got this clean bill of health. This is, people don't understand how significant this is and how well we've managed to get our house back in order. And people should know that, and we're moving forward. In
We should really
sound
thank
basis.
our chief financial officer.
Yes.
He's hiding behind it.
Yeah.
Benjamin, hey.
Thank you, Benjamin.
And thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work. See you next year.
Financial officers don't typically get ovations.
Next item.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the Charter Revision Commission final report presentation given by Councilmember McCormick.
Councilmember McCormick.
Okay, thank you. Well, I know we have a long meeting tonight, and I don't want to read through what you've already read. Everyone has the report. I thought that tonight it would be beneficial to answer any questions that people have about it. And was that some? Oh. But also, I wanted to start by thanking the commission. And if you will indulge me, I'd like to call them up. And we have from the village a coin that says, presented for excellence from the village of Key Biscayne, Florida, for service to the village, doing what is best for Key Biscayne. And a nice certificate that you can put at home. And just to remind everyone that the commission, like all of our committees, are volunteers who worked so hard. I know I put it in the letter before the packet, but for those of you at home who maybe haven't read the full agenda, the amount of work that these volunteers did, and not just at each meeting, but a tremendous amount of research at home and reviewing charters from other municipalities, going back through old election results to really come to what they thought and what we thought and was right for the village at this time, and what we thought was right to propose, of course, to the voters who make the ultimate decision. So we do have amendments to propose, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but I thought first we could call them up and give them our thank you. So we have Jennifer Stearns-Buttrick, Marco. Come on up, we're gonna come and take a picture with you. Marco Gomez. Judd Kurlanchek. And Mayor Joe Rasko.
They do know, actually. Who knows when I say Kurlanchek at meeting? Who knows what I'm talking about? Come on.
The first time John's ever gotten applause since you've been here.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Jennifer, thank you so much. It's lighter than your binder. Very nice. And Marco, thank you so much. Thank you all. They all work.
Chair.
And give her certificate. Thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, on behalf of our group, I think that the chairwoman really needs a lot of recognition because she did an excellent job of taking the committee through this work. She did it on time and on budget, so.
Thank you. It was some budget too.
And I would just like to add a big thank you to Chad Friedman and his law firm, who were very, very available to answer many, many questions, and it was really wonderful to work with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. That spoiled the whole spirit.
I know, right? I just also want to give some context, and I think this board did a great job, and they've obviously provided some amendments. So I want to give you the roadmap going forward. Tonight is for you guys to just accept the report as is. We will be bringing forward at a future meeting, either the May or June meeting, probably a item that will call for an election to bring these charter amendments forward. We have not drafted the ballot questions yet, but the ballot questions will come before you guys, and you guys will vote to put them on the ballot. It's not that you guys can change the substance of the amendments proposed, because you can't, but it's the formality of putting it onto the ballot that you guys need to approve.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
So that should be June?
The last point, either May or June. The last thing that I'll add is that the commission did follow the consensus of this council, which was to request that these amendments would be put onto the November ballot. The clerk has reached out to the elections department, or she's going to. We spoke about it today. I don't know if her email went out, to seek the consent of the elections department. We will report back to you once we hear them, whether or not they consent, but we anticipate they, hopefully will.
Excellent. I have another question for you. If citizens want to put something on the, say, November, how many signatures do they need to propose an amendment to the charter revision?
They have to have, I believe, it's a two-step process under 6. Hold on one second. 10% is, you're right, Mayor, but it's
put it on my list.
It's, hold on one second here. Oh, it's under 5.2. Okay. A minimum of 10 electors have to commence the process, and then you have to get 10% of the total numbers of electors registered to vote at the last regular village election.
registered, not who voted.
And then, what's the timeline? Because you start running into dates, I think, in May. To get on the
All
general
initiative
election.
and referendum petitions must be filed within 60 days of the date on which the proceedings with respect to such initiative or referendum are commenced. So they have 60 days to collect the signatures and then get it on the ballot.
Once they start, right? But how?
And then
what's
as far as the
cutoff?
the cutoff dates, the clerk can provide you the exact dates, but
For the general election?
Yes, for the general election.
July 29th.
Oh, okay. All right. That's not terrible. People still have a few months.
But we would still need to get the item and then bring it to this council to make sure we call for the special election.
Understand.
To do it. So, we can't get it on July 29th to be able to get it on.
But, okay.
So what is a reasonable time frame there?
Well, I would say that probably early June. It depends on what the item is, because once there is an item, if it's proposed to amend the charter, we also review it for legal sufficiency, and we go back and forth. And that's happened in this village, and I know Jennifer's, and we talked about it during this process. So I would suggest if there is an interest on people that they started on the early side, because the amendment needs to be legal, obviously, and then needs to be drafted and put before you guys to put onto the ballot. So, we're in April, so, I would start sooner than later.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Mayor, you had a comment?
You may want to just add, I guess you're focused on the November. The August election, that one's kind of cutting it too close, because I think that what is Jocelyn,
That'd be now, I think.
May 27th.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
it's
That,
too
okay.
close.
So it's not that.
All right.
Yeah, I just had one comment of one of the items on here. Quick question. Section 5.01 on elections. It talks about the council member primary. If we did a council member primary, if that passes, does that mean that the qualifying period would have to happen in June so that there could be a primary in August?
That's correct. The primary would be at the same time as the mayor's if one was necessary.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We'll look forward to you bringing it back. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I had the honor of chairing the founding committee, and to me, even looking back, it's one of the most grateful times. And we were 5 complete unknowns, and then I was on another. So I just want to double the congratulations of the Chair McCormick and all 4 of you, because from all I hear, civility rule and common sense rule, and it's particularly important because we've had a particularly difficult year and a half in our community, which is part of our DNA anyway. But it was an accomplishment beyond just the charter. I think it was a beautiful exercise. I hope you enjoyed it as much, 1/3 of what I did when I served. It's great work. Thank you so much again.
Thank you all.
You really did a great job. I'm so proud of you and all the work we did.
All right.
The next item is the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Jocelyn, you might just mention that you caught a typo in one of them. So it was fixed in March 8th.
It's a different event.
That's fine. Next item.
The next item is the first reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Chapter 29, Stormwater Utility System, Sections 29-2 entitled Definitions, 29-3 entitled Findings and Determinations, and 29-4 entitled Stormwater Utility Fee of the Village Code of Ordinances relating to the village's stormwater utility apportionment methodology for allocating stormwater utility fees and appeals or adjustments, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm going to open for public comment. Is anybody here? Anybody wish to speak on this ordinance? First reading. There is a first reading. There will be a second reading, but if anybody would like to speak. Okay.
Somebody's raising their hand.
You want to speak on this ordinance?
None of this in particular.
Okay, no, this ordinance, just this ordinance. Okay.
You did it so damn quick. From the term sheet, I have one discussion on the consent agenda, this last item, that's what I had here.
Sorry, so you want to talk to the manager about that?
Okay.
Talk to the manager. If there's an issue, you want to bring it back, bring it back. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, is that on the St. Agnes terms?
Yes.
All right, well, I'll talk to you, Councilman.
Talk, and if there's an issue, bring it back. If you're not
prorated in case of cancer.
Yeah.
Not only the lights, but the grass and everything else.
Yeah, that's the intent, right?
Okay.
Okay, but you guys have that conversation offline, and then if you need to come back, Ed, bring it back. Okay. Anybody, Pete, do we have anybody signed up to speak on this ordinance? Mr. Herrera, there will be another public comments section subsequently, but this is about each specific ordinance right now. Okay, let's go. Mr. Manager?
I want to speak about the charter revision, and then it's went by already, so.
I'm sorry?
I wanted to speak about the charter commission review.
No, but you'll have your chance at public comments.
Okay.
So Mr. Manager, you going to speak to this one? Or are we going to?
Talking about the utility fees now?
We're talking about the stormwater fees, yes.
If you would,
Well, I think he had comments. I think so.
My question is, how are we going to determine, or basically the impervious area?
Right.
Do we have any method of doing that? Except going to everybody's home and start measuring everything, every house on Key Biscayne, every building on Key Biscayne?
It's done, sir. We already measure every single property.
I'm sorry?
Every single property, residential, commercial, and multifamily has been measured.
So you've been in everybody's back lawn everywhere else?
We used aerial photos.
Okay, thank you.
Ed? Anybody else?
You hold those photos in confidence, the ones you took in his house.
Nobody flies over Ed's house.
Be helpful.
All right, anybody else comments, questions? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I spoke to the manager about this, and I really wanted to have maybe more time to sit with the consultants and really go through this deeper, run some simulations on future projects that are coming up and see how everything gets affected between different properties. Manager said that for sure he will put something together. I think that all of you should take your time and go through this just to make sure that we all feel very comfortable, because this is a big policy change.
It is.
But I agreed that I'll go ahead and give my vote to go to second reading, but I definitely want to do that in the meantime, because there's a lot in here, and I think we really need to go through it.
Yeah.
Yes, Vice Mayor. Based on our conversation and what I talked to the Vice Mayor and I offered to the rest of the council members between now and the next reading, we'll be happy to have both Jake, Benjamin, as well as the consultants sit down and walk through this step by step, because it is a big decision.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Inasmuch as we're going to be visiting on this again, in the definition of impervious area, we talk about the propensity to to retard penetration by rainwater. We speak in terms of rainwater. Wanted to just introduce the thought question of whether groundwater, apart from rainwater, ought to be included in this, considering some of the briefings we've had about groundwater levels and percolation. Just a thought.
Okay.
And we'll visit for second reading.
What kind of groundwater do we have except septic systems?
Groundwater.
Oh, so basically, we're down to how many septic systems, Jake?
30-something?
I thought we were like 12.
12 is not taking any action, but it's.
So it's like almost insignificant.
Yeah, teens, yeah.
I'm not thinking of septic, I'm thinking of substrate, water in the substrate.
Yeah, you're talking about a stormwater system, right?
I'm talking about water underground.
Talking about the water
pipes?
Yeah, water, but not the septic system.
No,
That's
I'm not.
why water usually comes.
I'm not talking about the septic
All right,
system.
well, let's go through this. I mean, let's have the vote now, and then let's go through this as we go. Call the question?
Roll call. Councilmember Laredo?
Yes.
Councilmember London?
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Segurola?
Yes.
Mayor Davey?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Yes.
The ordinance is approved on first reading.
Excellent, thank you.
The next item is an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending ordinance number 2021-07, which adopted the budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 by revising the 2021-2022 fiscal year budget amendment number 2, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open this for public comment. Anybody here to speak on this ordinance on first reading? You'll have another opportunity at second reading. Pete, we got anybody signed up?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anybody here want to speak to this one? Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Mr. Manager?
So as you can see in front of you, Mr. Mayor, and Benjamin, if you approach the podium, please. This is the second amendment. Last month, we put forth a first amendment, some immediate things that we had to move. After we went through, and in fact, what you just heard from our consultants, we identified that we were approximately $3 million unspent last year due to COVID operations. I asked Benjamin to ensure we put approximately $1 million of those into either the emergency fund or a reserve, and we've done that. I think we came in about 975. And then the rest of the items that you see in front of you are either new items that we have to do based on immediate requirements or additional construction costs based on the added cost of construction at this time.
Okay.
So what's the procedure now? Do we go down each item for and against?
What do you want? Well, no, let's go through. You're voting on, I mean, what are your, I guess, you want, let's go through each item. If you're for, if
Well,
you're.
these are the expenditures he wants to have for these various
Correct.
items. So is that the procedure now to go item by item?
It's up to you. If you have objections to the items, then yes, then we'll go through the objections that you have. You may not have all of them.
I'll let somebody else start.
I mean, I already went through it.
Okay.
The manager.
You go, Ed, you go first.
Okay. Obviously, $50,000 for seawall design and ordinance preparation. Basically, we're going to give the Army Corps $500,000 for the study. And the study, I assume, is going to come back with seawalls or whatever else we're going to need on the base side. So why are we going to spend $50,000 ahead of time?
Well, two things. One, we need to have our own village ordinance, and we have to do the assessment and the studies to do that. Secondly, the Corps is actually looking at storm surge vice sea level rise. The seawalls will address sea level rise to protect the close to our bayside homes. The Corps is looking at storm surge issues, which will look at a much bigger structure.
Well, but it still wouldn't entail with the seawalls.
No, it won't.
So in other words, what the Corps is going to do is not going to affect seawalls, or they're going to say, fine, leave them all the way they are.
No, I mean, obviously, the Corps will inform how we will address our seawalls, but the Corps' project is to address storm surge from the
Well,
back
all
bay.
I'm saying is I think we're just rushing and maybe wasting money that we don't have to do at this time. That's all. In other words, I'm not saying against it. I don't think it's timely right now.
I think they've got to be in connection. I think the two go hand in hand. Our issue, the Back Bay study and the shoreline protection program. When we went to Washington in 19, we were told, no, don't worry about the Back Bay. You guys get into the shoreline. Well, now we get into the shoreline, and Steve spends a lot of time, and all of a sudden they come back and say, whoa, we need you guys in the Back Bay. So this is part, if I'm not mistaken, the seawall ordinance and design is part of being part of the Back Bay.
Well,
it's not necessarily required, Mr. Mayor, but it's complements to it, right? It's our portion of in close protection to our homes, and it really addresses the sea level issue versus the storm surge.
Let me
issue.
ask you. Let me ask you
And we'll
that.
get Roland to give you more
Roland
detail.
wants to go. Let's just hold off. Let me ask some questions before you get fired up there, Sparky. I see him. He's like tweaking. My question, I guess, would be, were these things we're contemplating and we're just simply taking money that, our surplus and putting it toward this? Or is this a new idea that we're coming up with because we have $3 extra million?
So this is surplus, yes.
I know it is
Yes.
surplus, I'm saying, but because we had 3 million, we said, oh, we can do or was this something we have to do going forward?
In fact,
and
we
we're
knew
just
this, we knew this
allocating
back in
funds.
February.
Okay.
And of
That's
course,
what I thought.
We didn't know what the number was until obviously Benjamin was able to tell us about a month ago. So
Okay.
this is one of the things that Rowan had said. We've talked about this. We need to address, what
100%.
is our ordinance is going to be. We need to make sure that we understand our requirements so that if people do want to build, whether it's a new home, whether it's a renovation to the home, that they know what is the requirement of their seawall going to the
Long
future.
term, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Roland, you want to?
Sure. So we're in the process of developing the seawall ordinance language. The reason we need to have that in place is because as AECOM moves forward with their design, they're going to be modifying outfalls, which are then going to affect the seawalls. So this piece of work is going to basically be the design criteria, the technical basis that is the underpinning of what we propose in our seawall ordinance language.
It's $50,000.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, I mean that's.
Chad doesn't charge us that much for.
It's not my time.
It's not actually Chad's time. It's actually an ocean engineer's time that is coming up with all the technical specifications for seawalls to match what we're proposing in our seawall ordinance.
And also to study, because I think, and I don't, it's really,
Councilmember Laredo, then you.
It's really your, lane, not mine, but the village's topography, from what I understand, and speaking to Roland, varies, and different roads may have different elevations, right?
Well, yes, that's true. I mean,
because of when I say roads, I mean homes on the roads, so the seawalls may be higher in different areas than others, right?
Well, ultimately, we're proposing a certain crest height on the seawall with an opportunity then to build higher in years to come, given the design life of a seawall. So what's the technical justification for that crest height, and what are the design criteria that go along with that crest height, and what are the design criteria that go along with when you want to raise a seawall X number of feet in the future? What's the basis for that? That's what this investigation is all about.
Councilmember Laredo, and then Councilmember Kemp.
In simpler terms, the contribution that we're making, the so-called match and all that stuff, what are we getting in return from the Corps of Engineers?
This is essentially separate from the Corps of Engineers. We're kind of merging two things into one discussion. But the match that we're allocating for going forward with the Corps of Engineers is specifically for a back-based study that doesn't necessarily involve the seawalls. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but fundamentally it's most likely to be a solution that is above and beyond the seawalls.
Right.
And that deals with storm surge as opposed to sea level rise.
But if it does,
for the non-technical citizens, this is attracting, if I can use, I'm simplifying very complex subject. We are attracting new out of taxpayers' money, not our money, into this whole project. Are we not?
Well, relative to the back
split.
Relative to the back-based study in the Corps, yes.
Call it what you may. I just want the people to know, by us investing in this thing, we will get back some cash that does not come out of your pocket. Would that be simple enough to?
I think there's a couple things. One is the actual split on the study itself.
Right.
So it's a 50-50 federal-local split. The county has agreed that they would pay 50% of the 50, so that we're paying 25% of the study itself.
But that's Back Bay. That's not this, correct?
That is this.
Oh, that is this.
And what this study does is sets the conditions for the future work, which would be a 65 federal, 35 local design and construction split, which would at that point consist of state, county, and local.
I go back to my plain English. I'm not too smart philosophy for all of us to understand. This is a great investment whose return is rather significant.
So you're telling me this costs us $12,500?
Again, we're mixing two different things up. One is the $500,000 that's going towards the Corps as our match. That is 25% of the total cost for the back-based study. And then there's this $50,000 that is to develop the technical basis for our seawall ordinance.
We're not getting anything back on this.
No, so we would have to do that seawall project with or without the Corps doing this stormwater back-based study.
So they might be doing when they're doing the $2 million study, it might include the seawalls, and then we're just spending $50,000.
They won't. No, they're not. No,
we don't know what they're doing. They might be doing it. He doesn't know what they're going to do yet. Correct?
Having had discussions with them, I have a pretty good idea.
We're in the midst of writing the scope of work with them. Yeah. It's not in the scope of work.
Councilmember McCormick?
It's also my understanding that the involvement of the Corps on both sides of the island often hinges on our commitment to move these projects forward and to do work ourselves, including things like being so invested that we have a seawall ordinance. So when the next speed bump comes around and they're looking to throw us out, it is yet another way that we are proving our commitment. The way that they said having passed the general obligation bond, showed that this island is committed to this type of improvement and.
And you're exactly right, Councilmember. I think we've gotten here because of our proven commitment to not just from a financial perspective, but also all the steps along the way that's going to protect the entire island, not just the shorelines.
Thank you. Councilmember Kaplan?
That is the point that I was wanting to highlight. I've come to understand that this is not merely optics of commitment. They expect to see this work.
That's correct.
And we have to perform this work.
Similarly, as they expect to see 3 public beach access paths, of which we're pretty much locked into and working on the 3rd.
If we want to sacrifice the work that we've put in thus far and the promise of getting involved in this shoreline protection compact, we shouldn't do this.
You don't know you're sacrificing anything.
We have to do this.
I'll tell you, I think McCormick said it great.
I think so.
And let's don't forget that this is a thing that opened up because of a lot of work in developing relationships. We were completely out of the picture. We were in the moon when they were moving forward. And let's don't forget that we accomplished that. We got into the loop with the Army Corps of Engineers. I know, and so people need to know that this is a good thing and it's part of a strategy that we're moving in that direction.
That's exactly right. It's
Basically, the reason we should do is to thank Mr. Manager.
Yes.
And we thank you for getting us in the study, because we really think that you had a lot to do with it.
I'm going to thank our Chief Resilient Officer for all the hard work he's done in advance of.
These are the only 2 guys that haven't gotten applause this evening.
All right.
Shall we give it to them?
That's it. That's the last one you get.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on this.
East Enid streetlights.
You're the one who wanted the East Enid streetlights.
I think
we wanted the East Enid
I want
streetlights.
streetlights everywhere.
Right.
But why are we going with FP&L? We own street.
I'm just the mayor, man. Talk to the manager.
Doing basically have LED streetlights with solar. I mean, we talk about sustainability, we talk about all these things, and now we're talking about using FP&L to do it rather than having solar streetlights. And why just on East Enid? Why not the entire village? Just because we had an incident in East Enid, just a lot of the streets besides East Enid.
Correct.
I'll talk to that, but go ahead.
Right, and I have actually a more detailed presentation during my report after the manager's report item about East Enid. But again, we start doing some research on LED solar lights. It's a new technology, but we don't feel that East Enid is a good location for that type of experiment. It's a critical area. It's very dark, and we wanted to do it the right way. We want to make sure it's well lit, and FPL has LED LT tariff that they help municipalities. It's basically very little to no upfront cost, and it's monthly payment per pole. And so that's what we want to do. And FPL is going to take over. They're going to maintain, and it's a turnkey project that's done from design to construction by FPL, and it's our professional opinion that it is the best fit and best use of taxpayers' money to do it this way.
And as you mentioned, Councilmember, for the rest of the village, we're also looking at that. This is just solely we wanted to move forward based on the incident we had a couple months ago. Jake is also working with FPL on converting all of our streetlights to LED and transferring control to FPL so they will maintain them going into the future as well.
I would add, when we talk about streetlights, you're going to see an issue that divides neighborhoods house by house. I've gone to houses, said, these people are yelling, I need a streetlight here, I need a streetlight here. Next door neighbor saying, you put a streetlight here, I will find you. So it's going to be something we're going to have to go through as a community and really talk it out, because there are people who are adamantly for and adamantly against, and we've got to figure out how to use your skills of influence to persuade them all to come together as one community.
But are we giving up our right? I mean, if we want to change a light bulb, is this going to be forever to get FPL to come out and do one small thing for us? Are we giving that control up by getting FPL involved?
Yes, but in a good way. So, and again, I have a very detailed presentation under the manager's item. So under this program, FPL is committed to respond in predefined time period. So it's not like they can take their time and come back in a week after the light out. outage. And all the systems are actually equipped with the smart lighting. So once it's out, automatically sends signals to FPL, they know it is out. And whether the light bulb goes out 10 times a year or whatever happens, it's all covered. So all we do is pay a monthly fee per pole. For East Inlet, I believe $650, yeah, a month, which is about $38 per pole per month. Includes electric, maintenance, repair, so on and so forth.
And just to add, before Ed, you continue, is that I mentioned to the manager that we really need to get on top of these lights, because when I walk around the streets, they're, the bulbs are different, the glass is different, the light temperature is different. You have some that are yellow, some that are white, some you can see the bulb, some you can't see the bulb.
Right.
We need some type of standard saying this is what we want in Key Biscayne. That's it, unless we make a policy change. So manager said you would bring back some suggestions to us that we can make a decision of.
Yeah, well,
of
that's
what
one
we
of the benefits of going to FPL. When we do this transfer, all the heads will be changed, all the light bulbs will be changed, and to do that, obviously, we're going to bring that back to council. There's going to be a cost associated with that, so we'll offer different options. That they'll lay out different options, and we'll make sure we present that to the council.
Okay, excellent.
Anything I missed on that, Jake?
And again, it is the trend for every municipality to move away from street lighting business and transfer to FPL, and everybody's seen benefit. And we looked at it; it makes sense. So, but again, this will be before the council in the next few months for discussion.
My last item is.
Hold on.
So I have a light question. Two questions. One, with this maintenance program, do we have any kind of guarantees in our contract of how long it takes to respond to calls for service?
It is in the contract. It will be the lighting agreement that we're going to sign, and then it will be, again, presented before the council before execution.
It'll be part of the contract, yes.
And then second question, I know we've heard Ed talk a lot about trying to look into moving our streetlights to some sort of a solar streetlight system. Does this, installing these lights now, preclude us from trying to, I don't know what the word is, solarize them down the road?
Right. And again, we can, but if you have solar lights, and it's going to be upon us to maintain it. And we all know we have very little to no equipment in public works. We can't really maintain it. We're going to have to resource out to contractors. So it is hard for us to maintain. But again, we feel that, especially for East Inlet, this was not a good choice. Solar powered LED. But we're thinking perhaps Hampton Park may be a good location, now that we're gonna revamp that park. So we're looking into it. There's some manufacturers out there that has been putting out products that some people are happy. So we'll see if you can find the right product, is the right place for it, we'll do it.
Well, and I imagine that this is the kind of thing that is still actively emerging technologically in terms of getting to where it's really a viable product, but I think it struck me that it is the desire of this board to move in that direction. And I think people would even enjoy the fact that when the power goes out on the island, we could still have streetlights.
Yeah, potentially. Next item?
Mayor, I don't, was there a vote on the actual ordinance?
Not yet. We're going through
No,
it.
we're going through Ed's item.
Oh, okay.
Ed's
Sorry, I
next
just wanted to
item.
make sure.
Next Ed item, not next board item.
The next thing is the Hampton Park improvements.
Yeah, I actually had a question about that one.
Jake, any idea how much we spent on Hampton Park improvements to date?
Improvements include the capital improvements or
Not buying the property, fixing the property up.
Fixing the property up. I'm gonna refer back to Todd and get the initial cost. But every year, I would say probably $20,000 to $25,000 in public works
I'm talking about
budget.
the initial cost. And the thing's a disaster, so I'm all for spending the money. I just don't want to dump more money and get the same kind of result. That's my question.
That's maintained.
But, okay, so this time, this park is, we're going with a professional look. It's been done in-house, myself, Jeremy, and our landscape architect, horticulturalist. We don't intend on changing the design. We're just going to revamp it and make sure it's designed and built correctly. We have drainage issues that we have to resolve there, so we're going to have to regrade it. It does not drain properly. That's going to be done. I don't foresee the layout of the park being changed, but we're going to repair it in a way that actually functions and the resident can enjoy. I agree, it did look bad. We did a major cleanup. But we have $50,000 grant money in it, and then I think we're asking additional 50 under this. And we are confident that it's going to come out good. And
How about as far as the maintenance once you do this?
and again, we're going to try to do it in a way that it's as little as maintenance requirement of the maintenance as little as possible. We're going to use that plants material that we can actually maintain. We know how to maintain. And again, we're going to grade it. The sod that we're going to use is going to be easy to maintain. Again, once we get a control over it, we can do a good job. But again, it was out of control. There were plant material that we didn't know it was exotics. It was more like a botanical garden than a municipal park. So that's why we had a hard time maintaining this park. So we try to change that. But again, the layout of the park, we have no intention of changing layout. Layout's going to stay the same. We're just going to make it nicer and cleaner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else, any items on this, or we call the question? Let's call the question.
Councilmember London.
No.
Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
Wasted 50,000
Vice Mayor Moss.
Yes.
I disagree with you on
Councilmember
this.
Segarola.
Yes.
Mayor Davey.
Yep.
Councilmember Kaplan.
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo.
Yes.
The item is approved on first reading. The next item is a second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending ordinance number 2021-07, which adopted the budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 by revising the 2021-2022 fiscal year budget, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm going to open this up for public comments. This is the second reading on this item. Is anybody here to speak on this ordinance, which is amending the budget? Pete, we have anybody signed up to speak? Okay, I'm going to close public comments.
As the mayor said, this is the second reading of the budget ordinance. So budget ordinance calls one number 1, even though we heard number 2 prior to this. The only material difference here is if you look at one project is strike through the Crandon Boulevard Complete Street projects. We believe we can get outside grant funding, so we don't need to use, obviously we'll look to use external funding before we use our own. Everything else is the same. As the last reading, which the majority of these items are carry forward projects and that we didn't spend them in fiscal year 21 for one reason or another, and now we're going to complete them in fiscal year 22.
Okay.
So this will just be surplus in 22.
Excuse me?
This will just be surplus in 22 that was anticipated.
Well, I think
projects
no,
that
the
we didn't
village
get done
intends
then.
to get these projects completed during 22, so we're not.
No, but I'm saying a lot of the stuff, other than 21, we had money in
Correct.
the budget in 22. Now you're bringing more money into the budget in 22 that wasn't spent in 21. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we'll have a surplus then?
Yeah.
Okay. So if the surplus stays surplus, or we spend it before it comes back to us?
I understand
In
the
other
question.
words, you have a budget. So now your budget was $100. And last year, the budget was $90. So now you didn't spend, $100 last year, you spent 90, so you have extra 10. So now you have $110. Our budget's $100. Does the $10 stay a surplus, or do we find a way of spending it?
It'll only be spent if obviously these items are approved. Otherwise, the surplus stays with the village and it's not spent at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, call the question.
Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moss.
He's out of the room.
Councilmember Segarola.
Yes.
Mayor Davey.
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan.
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo.
Yes.
Councilmember London.
Yes.
Brett just came back.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
The ordinance is approved on second reading. The next item is a second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Article 2, Chapter 26, Golf Carts of the Village Code of Ordinances relating to golf cart and slow-moving vehicle use within the village, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm going to open this for public comments. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on the second reading of the golf cart ordinance?
Does Peter wish to read the instructions?
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't done.
Hey, have you got anybody?
Do you want him to read?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, all right. Let's read the directions, instructions.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Anyone wishing to speak to this ordinance, please dial the following phone number: 305-265-7569. Then please enter the meeting ID of 231-627-8415. Once in the meeting, please dial star 9 to raise your hand, or to simply raise your hand in the Zoom app.
Okay. Anybody, Pete?
No, Mr. Mayor, nobody signed up.
All right. Let's go. Close public comments. You're up, Chief. Why are you looking at me? My golf cart's been on Fernwood the whole time.
Parked illegally.
Well, that's different. He's not here about parking. He's about moving violations today.
No, this is obviously an ordinance that we've been working on since I arrived in the village. A lot of feedback from the council, residents, and we worked closely with Chad and his group to propose the changes that you have there. If approved on the second reading, we're going to prepare a press release tomorrow morning, send it out to the Islander and Tony Winton, and we'll utilize social media. We'll do heavy education, and then, as most of you would like, lots of enforcement.
What would you say, what are the big changes?
Well, to highlight some of the changes, it gives us the ability to propose village ordinances versus state statute tickets.
Good.
Obviously, we want to collaborate with our youth. We don't want to give them the iron fist. We want to give them the opportunity to curb their behavior. But we also need to curb some of the behavior by some of our adults within the village. You know, specifically something I witnessed today, you know, when children are in golf carts, they need to be in baby seats.
Right.
But I have seen more of a compliance lately, to speak honestly. So I think that's a good thing. I think we're headed in the right direction. But obviously, getting this ordinance approved will give our officers the ability to have another tool at their disposal to decide whether or not to go the state statute route or the village ordinance route.
I have a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
My understanding after seeing this is what we're really doing is codifying at the village ordinance level pre-existing county and state statutes, right?
Correct.
Okay. So it gives you, the police department, the ability to fine. But my question is, wasn't that already there before?
Yeah, it was there. The thing is if you, for example, Councilmember, if we stop a kid at 16 on a golf cart, we're hitting them with a $185 ticket versus a $75 ticket. You know.
Now under the new ordinance.
Correct, under the new ordinance. I'm all for the enforcement aspect, but I also want to collaborate with the youth to allow them to understand. I think a lot of it is a miseducation, right? They're just, I don't want to say not supervised, but they're not getting proper guidance on what they can and cannot do. They're having a good time. They're being a 16-year-old kid. $75 ticket is still a fine for them. But, you know, if they don't pay their ticket, it's not going to automatically suspend their license and impact their ability to get a driver's license.
Okay. Now, on page 4 of 6 at the bottom, subsection 26-24, I thought my understanding was before that golf carts really weren't supposed to be operated at night, whether or not they had headlights. But this seems to allow for driving at night if they're equipped with headlights and a windshield.
Correct. So underneath the statute, the council in the 90s made the determination that you're allowed to make to allow them to drive at night if they have the proper equipment.
Yep.
I have seen, my personal experience is the golf carts that I have seen on Crandon at night, even if they have headlights and taillights, number one, most of the time they're off or they don't have them. And number two, when they do have them, they're so dim. And the placement on the golf carts is either so low, for example, in the back, the red lights, and so small that you can't even tell what the heck it is. My preference would be to not allow them at night because that's one of the more dangerous times. That's a change I would request. And then on the following page, in paragraph 5 in that same chart, again, it seems we're repeating what was originally said in the ordinance, which is golf carts are not allowed on Crandon unless you go from, one block to the other. But what are we really doing with that? I mean, are all those changes we discussed still in the works, and we're just sort of going to stick with what we have for the time being, or is there going to be a different form of enforcement? What's going to happen with that?
Well, I definitely think you're going to see a different form of enforcement. Before there was a lot of, the message I got from the officers, there was a lot of hesitancy to do the enforcement, because if you issue a citation to a juvenile who's 16 and they don't have a license and they don't pay the fine, you can't get a driver's license till you're 18 in the state of Florida. So there's also a lot of hesitancy for some of these kids to go home and tell their parents, hey, the cop stopped and wrote me a ticket, and then 30 days later, they get issued an ID number and it's suspended and they can't get a driver's license till they're 18. So I think what I was trying to accomplish through Chad is come up with a way that we have options and give the officers options, that they're able to utilize something to build a relationship and engage the youth, because that was a lot of the complaints I was getting. I will tell you, in the last month and a half, though, I've seen, and I go out often, I've run into a number of you, I've seen more infractions from the adults than from the children.
Agreed.
So,
just to be clear for whoever's watching, before, if you gave some sort of citation to a minor that didn't have a driver's license, they automatically could not get their license till 18.
If they didn't pay, I thought.
if they didn't pay.
If they didn't pay.
Correct.
Now you're creating the mechanism where you can give them a village citation that's separate from the one that has a higher sanction with the state.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you, just for further edification, through our records management system, we're able to track if a village ordinance was, let's just say we gave Johnny Smith a ticket. Next time Johnny Smith gets stopped by another Key Biscayne police officer, they're going to be able to see when they run his name that he was issued a village ordinance for a golf cart violation on so-and-so date through our records management system.
With this new statute or this new ordinance, how do you envision the police department handling people driving up and down the length of Crandon in golf carts?
So Crandon is, I'm going to be very honest, is a little trickier because, we all know it's a county road. We all know that it says you can't go more than a block and a half. I witnessed a golf cart yesterday leaving the station, and it turned into one of the shopping centers, and then it made a U-turn and came right back. Technically, are they driving more than a block and a half on Crandon? You can make the argument, right? So I just think it's again, that it's that engaging component in getting officers out of their cars. A lot of what Councilmember London wants, and we've seen it. We've seen it at the Village Green and the 400 block there. We've seen more. I see more issue with golf carts on Fernwood than I do on Crandon. But I know on the weekends it's a different feel.
So just to be clear, so anywhere on the roadway, I just want to follow up on your point about Crandon. Anywhere on a roadway surface of Crandon Boulevard, except to cross the thoroughfare marked intersections or intersections regulated by a traffic signal, or to travel north or south pursuant to this. I wasn't clear on that.
We haven't changed that standard.
It hasn't been changed.
It's the same exact language as before.
Because I think that's a big concern. I agree with you. I've seen some nuttiness on Fernwood, especially with kids. They see how many, it's like a clown car. That's a problem. But I agree with you. The biggest issue I have is on Crandon in the evenings. I would vote against if you brought up, not being able to use my golf cart at night. I have headlights, I have the lights, and I operate. But I do have a problem with the Crandon issue, because you get one speed or one chucklehead, and you've got a golf cart on Crandon that it's low. You might not see the lights as well. There's a potential for an accident there. I like and I appreciate everything that's gone into this, but the regulation on Crandon has to be stepped up. We've got to start pushing people to, if we are allowed to go the one block. I'm frankly happy because I work less than a block from where I live, so I can come out, make the left, and I go right into my building. But I wouldn't want to be able to go all the way down to Village Hall on Crandon. I got to go back to Fernwood, and I make my ride down. I do, because I do think that's a safety concern. I agree with that point. Councilmember Kaplan, Councilmember Laredo, Councilmember London, Vice Mayor, and then back to Councilmember Cigarella. I don't know where you are in line.
At first reading, we recognized what we were and were not doing with this particular ordinance. We are not dealing with that
Understood.
in this particular ordinance. I think we need to revisit the important policy discussion that we had. There are important pros and cons about Crandon. We've identified them in conversations here previously. We've never resolved them. It does not seem to me to work to simply proscribe driving up Crandon other than one block. We have a state park at the end that you simply can't get to if that's the law.
So you're absolutely right, Councilmember. When he was speaking, the mayor was speaking, making his comments, that's my first thought. That's one of the unique areas of the village. You know, if you're exiting Bill Baggs on Crandon, there's just nowhere to turn, you know, until you get to KB Green. So yeah, that is a unique challenge for us when it comes to enforcement. But you know, I also recognize the concerns of Councilman Cigarella and what the mayor just said, because I've seen it. You know, when we have individuals traversing on Crandon to get into various shopping centers or coming out of Sonesta or Key Colony, Ocean Lane Drive, those are unique challenges getting to and from where they need to go. And more specifically, when you have the 16, 17-year-old at night trying to traverse Grand Bay to get into Village Green, you know, those are challenges.
I think we recognize all of that. We have in the past. We just simply need to legislate. That's going to start with a policy discussion. It's going to be complicated. That's not in this ordinance. The only question that I have in this ordinance, same question I had at first reading, that language on 5 of 6 in the last box is susceptible to about 10 different interpretations.
Which one's that?
Your comment before was because of the way it fell on the page that you can't really see the fine, I thought. That's what you
It's not that. It's does this mean that our ability to regulate that traversing on Crandon is subject to authorization from Miami-Dade that we do not have?
No, Miami-Dade, anywhere on a roadway such as Crandon, what it's saying is, I believe, is that to allow for you to go through the thoroughfare with county approval.
But so it's the reverse. The county approval would be required to allow a broader traverse on Crandon.
Right. Well, let me read it. Hold on. That's true, but
it just doesn't make sense.
On a roadway service with Crandon Boulevard, except to cross the market, travel north or south along Crandon.
While you're reading, the predicate is that this parenthetical is a violation. The question of what this parenthetical says is impervious.
And again, the language has not changed. We just moved it into this area here. So it's actually easier if we look at it in the code itself.
Either way, this is specifically what we need to revisit and legislate.
Councilmember Laredo?
Yes, this is second reading, and we need to, again, going back to the charter, we set up ourselves as policymakers and executing policy, our professionals, and we set a tone and a direction very clear about law enforcement, breaking habits, bad habits, et cetera, et cetera. This needs to be looked at the content of that. This is not perfect, but it's progress. So I think Seguralla's points are very interesting. We can revisit. This is second reading. We are trying to do in this overall policy decision, which I think, by the way, the new manager and the new police chief is really paying off. I've said it 100 times to all of you. You can see it on Rickenbacker, where we need to go back to what is a basis of American law enforcement, which is self-policing. The people obey the law. But unfortunately, some people need to be ticketed until they're hurt before they actually get in line. And there are a couple of cultural differences, and I think this should be looked at, imperfect as it is, as progress and in moving in the direction of our big policy. And let me tell you something else. The most important thing is that this administration has gone out of its way, just like I said when you were heading the whole thing with the land use. We've had public hearings. You have reached out to everybody. So nobody can complain, is what I'm saying, because we didn't arbitrarily from one day to the next just decide to change your mode. So I want to laud you from the patience and also to take the input from the public. And I think there is progress being made, and I think we ought to move this because while it's not perfect, it is progress and is very consistent with our policy of strict enforcement and getting back to respect of the law across the board, including golf carts. So I think it's great, and we can revisit some of the other issues at another time.
Councilmember
Frank, basically it said be equipped with headlights and a windshield. I think we also want to have the headlights on, because basically they can say, I got headlights and a windshield. It doesn't say I have to have them on. So I think you have to have your headlights on.
When you read the state statute 316 and 318, where it says on the right-hand side.
Sorry?
Pursuant to 316 and 318, so that would follow that if it's after dusk, I think you have to have your lights on.
It codifies it.
Oh, you understand where I'm coming from. And the other thing again is, which I objected to before and object to now, is to have a yearly inspection of the golf carts. And the idea that, well, this is good for the police, they'll get to meet the people and talk to them, that's crazy. I mean, the police should be out patrolling the streets and seeing the people, not people have to waste their time to go get the golf carts inspected when we don't inspect cars or anything else. So if you want to inspect it every 5 years, you can inspect when you buy it, make it 5 years, I'll go with it. But if you every year, I'll be against it again.
Just to address that, it really is a safety issue, and it goes back to your point that you initially made. I understand your concern of police resources. The majority of our golf cart registrations are done by professional staff. After hours, it's obviously handled by officers. But why it's so important to do the safety aspect of it is because we actually explain the headlight requirement, the safety requirements, the seat belts, to reinforce the good behavior, and it's an excellent opportunity to engage the community and get to know the officer's face that you want them so desperately to know and be policing.
I do, but there's no reason to do it on an annual basis. It's a waste of people's time. It's a waste of whether it's not the police, professional staff, it's a waste of time. And it's just really unfair to our residents to have to do that. It accomplishes nothing except you charge them $15 or whatever. And from telling the $15, we could just send you the money, send the sticker, just trying to raise money, but it makes no sense at all to do it every year. So I'd like to see that changed.
Yeah, I agree with Ed on the inspection. I think annually is, it does happen sometimes, Ed. I think annually is a little too much. And I think what ends up happening is then people don't go, and then they really don't go, and they go many, many years without being inspected. And so I would like for us to consider a different time frame on the inspection. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, but I think that annually is a little too frequent. And
Is still good enough?
Yeah, what's your frequency you propose?
If so, I move to.
Well, we would have.
It's not part of this ordinance.
It's not included. I checked after
It's not in
our
this
list. We would
ordinance.
have to bring back an item, which I understand some other folks have some other ideas too. So we could discuss that and bring it back.
I'd rather we make a decision today.
Well, it sounds
we
like
can amend that later.
And then in a separate ordinance.
Yeah, in a separate ordinance.
Have
I'm
to do
okay
it.
with that. I can,
Okay.
because it sounds like certainly with Crandon, we still have a lot to sort out because
Yeah.
I don't think any of us feel satisfied with how we're handling Crandon Boulevard with this.
Right.
So clearly this, even if we pass this tonight, this discussion isn't.
Why don't we just table it and come back and pass an ordinance
because-
that's complete?
Well, because I'd like to, well,
We need to, we
hold on,
need to make decisions.
let's her, I don't want to interrupt, and let's let her go, and then we've got people down the line.
I think everyone knows where I stand in terms of the fines with kids. I feel stricter is way, way better. I can wrap my mind around the changes if you truly feel like this is going to give your officers what they need to make all of those stops. Because while I think it's a really big deal for kids to be driving without a driver's license and that they should be treated the same as when they're driving a car without a driver's license, especially when we have had many times the case in this community where the parents are giving them the keys because it's more convenient. And I think that's a really big deal and incredibly unsafe. And we have a lot of other children out there on bicycles and on foot. And for their safety, I've always really felt that I liked the very sort of harsh penalty because I think it's that big of a deal. But if what you're telling us is that this is the tool that you and your officers need to handle this situation and to make this problem that we have with underage drivers driving golf carts, then I can support this. That's what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Vice Mayor and then Councilmember Cigarella.
A couple items here. I think the police enforcement on Crandon has been working. I've had friends of mine call me and say, "Hey, I got stopped," and they told me I was going too many roads. So they're out there, they're doing it. There might be warnings, which is fine. It's educating, and they're not doing it anymore. So I think that's great. The ability to drive it at night, I would definitely not support the recommendation that came from Councilmember Segurola of not being able to drive it at night. I think that I don't agree. I think most of the carts that I see out there have lights on them. I have not seen people driving unless they're accidentally driving with the lights off. Personally, my lights are brighter than my car lights. My headlights on my golf carts are extremely bright, probably over bright, but and then so are many people that I drive past. So I don't see any issue with not being able to see them. I would not be in support of that. This idea of ticketing. So it was interesting because you said that if it's a state ticket and they don't pay it, then it comes back and hits them pretty hard. And one of the reasons why they don't pay is because they don't want their parents to know about it. So now we're going to give them our own little ticket that I think that actually solves their problem where their parents are not going to find out about it. So what do we do to make sure that, one, are they going to pay it? And two, that their parents do find out about it? Because they should, right? Are we sending out something in the mail if they haven't paid it in 30 days saying, hey, remember the ticket that this person got, and parents find out about it? So I want to make sure that we're just not solving their problem by, hey, I didn't pay it, it disappeared, and my parents didn't find out, I didn't get in trouble. So what's the process if they decide not to pay again?
The majority of the contacts that we've had with young adults, and since I've been here in adolescence, they contact the parents, regardless of the outcome, whether it be the Orby guns or they're trespassing or we've had an issue. Even if we're giving them a warning or some kind of enforcement, the parents are always contacted. And so there is follow-up. It's not just, sign here and we're going to let you go. And that's documented in our records management system also, who we spoke to. There are times where we've driven the child home, we follow the child home. The whole goal is to build that collaboration, but still understand that there's ramifications for your actions, right? Mm-hmm. And there's serious consequences because, like Councilmember McCormick stated, just giving the keys to someone, it can create great damage if they have an accident.
Yeah, I think it's contradicting, I think, what you said earlier, that a lot of people, they get this issue with their license because they decided not to pay it and not to tell their parents. But even if you were giving a state ticket, you're saying that most of them, you actually see them tell their parents anyways, right? It's just
we're following up with the parents, not that they wouldn't.
Okay.
But I think it would go through our code enforcement process. So eventually, it could result in a lien.
A lien against who?
The property, because these
the
folks
car?
live here.
No, against the property.
Because the property owner. Because we're going to cite them.
So does that happen with kids? So the kids get the parents.
If you live here, we can cite you. So, that's what's going to happen.
Even a child, right?
If you violate our code, yeah. Right. So I'm not. That's a worst case scenario, but they're going to get notice. So.
And that happens with renters as well, right? If you rent a property and they don't pay it, that goes to the lien of the property owner?
Typically, we go to the property owner because the renters don't live here. So then we have to chase them. It's enforceable against them, but it's a lot of times from a cost-benefit perspective, it's not worth it. So we would cite the owner, and then it would record against.
Falls in their lap.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Cigarella?
3 things. I appreciate this effort. I understand that it could be a step in the right direction. The reason I say could is because, in my opinion, this is 50% or less of what we need to do in order to see a real change. What needs to happen in order to see a real change is to follow through on all the changes to Crandon that we discussed. If you add that to this ordinance, then you have some real teeth and you have a real clear path, literally and figuratively, for people in golf carts to follow and to have a safer Crandon. So I support the ordinance, but unless we make those changes to Crandon with the county, I don't think we're going to see any real substance change over time. And what I think would happen if we don't do that is the same thing that happened when the last ordinance was passed. It sort of withers away over time and people forget about it. Number two, I am in favor of registering and inspecting the golf carts every year. If you leave it to every 2 years, you're going to have golf carts fall in disrepair. People are going to ignore them. Lights are not going to work. It's going to be a disaster. So putting it every 2 years, I might even, I mean, theoretically, I would do it even more often, but once a year is fine. You can't leave it every 2 years. And number three, even though I understand there's no support on this council for it, I make a motion that we ban the golf carts from dusk to dawn, because that's a danger waiting to happen. And it's only a matter of time, in my opinion.
Well, wait a minute, why don't,
He's made a motion to amend the ordinance to remove.
and amend, if we amend the
No.
ordinance.
We would have to bring back an ordinance if the motion passed.
The motion passes, but I'm just trying to explain what his motion is. He would like to change, let me be correct.
So I understand that
Section
subject part, Mayor.
26-24.
Well, no, section 2624 is a violation. It's creating a vehicle, a village violation. That the law already exists under existing state law, I would assume, and also under our ordinance.
Yes.
So that would have to come back under a new ordinance. But is there a motion? He's making a motion. Is there a second for this? For the motion? Okay, the motion dies for failure of a second, so it's a moot point at this point.
Let's go. What I wanted to say is, to get us all moving in the right direction, I may agree with some of the things that he's suggesting. I'm saying, again,
this is a start.
Progress. They need it. They have put a lot of time, that is the officers. And if we pause, even if it's a month, it also adds to some reputation that we don't make decisions. We made the big decision to strict enforcement. So I like to
call
move
the question.
this motion.
It's already been moved. It's moved and seconded. It's up for a vote. Call it.
Vice Mayor Moss,
Yes.
Councilmember Segrola,
Yes.
Mayor Davey,
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan,
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo,
Yes.
Councilmember London,
No.
Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted on second reading.
Let's go.
Mr. Mayor, it's past 8 o'clock. Manager's report.
Okay, well, if we're going to do that, I'd like to go. We've got one person here just waiting for public comments. Let's give him the courtesy. I mean, he said he was here to talk about the charter amendments. So if no objections, I'm going to move up public comments for now. Ms. Herrera, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everybody, council members and mayor, village manager. My name is Andy Herrera, 166 Harbor Drive, or Andres Herrera. So we'd like to address about the Charter Review Commission work done to suggest some changes or into our charter. So my main concern is having a check and balance in our village government. And what I would like, if it can be included on the new charter or to think about it, having a commission for transparency, accountability, and ethics, where we, as a community, can oversee, a committee that can oversee how we are performing as a village, and then having every single one of the village council members, mayors, and administration held accountable for how we develop and how we implement laws that are positive for the well-being of the community. So it's something that was not addressed or pointed out as a suggestion, and we don't change the charter really often. So to me, to please our community, and to safeguard the interests of our government, our village, having a commission that we have any that will look for transparency, like I said, accountability and ethics will be the most important tool. So the whole community will be happy, because when we have an election and we choose a village council and there are 4 people that for some reason they have, they are having this, and then since are taking care, a decision has been done basically because there's not enough quorum to approve something, and then sometimes we need to have someone looking for the interest of the minority. So that commission will see if any of those council members making decisions or into the accountability of projects, things like that, they are acting in good faith. So that commission will judge that, and we don't have that check and balance tool in our government. So it's very important. And for me, as a resident, and many people are pointing this out for many years, we are doing a charter revision, and this is a very important tool that will make everybody happy, not one side, not the other side. So that's extremely important to be taken into consideration. And it was not that too late, and I was listening to Mr. Freeman about having 10 members or residents, to submitting and have a period of time to submit those amendments. I mean, just a few seconds. We can, as a government, as the and these 2 gentlemen and the other 2 that left already, they can consider that to be included, on for the next coming elections to vote. So that will be a key factor for us to go ahead and move forward as one community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For you.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a caller.
Okay. Please.
Caller with the telephone number ending in 906. Please dial *6 to unmute yourself. Caller, you are live.
State your name and address.
Michelle Esteves,
Okay.
I'm ready. Michelle Esteves, 425 Great Tree Drive. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I think it's proper that I will disclose that I am the manager of the Square Shopping Center, and I am speaking on their behalf. And I am here to request the assistance from the council, because the Square Shopping Center started a process in to the change of the fine ordinance and the fine code that was adopted incorrectly by the village code. This process started in July 2020. I understand that we have COVID and everything, but because of the change in village staff, we are still today without the change. We have presented the changes to the village with a new plan. We have paid the fee that was required of $1,200 and the new plan. We are almost ready, but I am urging the council this evening to please request the staff to bring that to the meeting, to the council meeting next month. We have businesses that they have been unable to place their fines. We have the banks that have changed, and they have to apply for a temporary banner to put on top of the colonnade of the shopping center. And before I was asked that I need a council approval, a council to support the change, but apparently it's not now. So all I'm asking on behalf of the 55 business of the square is please to encourage the staff to bring this change to the fine code, that is the proper code, for approval of the council. So on behalf of all the businesses of the square, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Pete, we have anybody else?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I'm going to close public comments.
Item reports, recommendations, village manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, if it's okay with you and the rest of the council, as well as the clerk, I'd be happy to go back and continue the where we were left off. I think we have 3 important decisions to be made.
Perfect. Let's go back.
Let's move
Okay,
on.
well, let me get my my council members back.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
The next item is the second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, creating Section 2-105, Campaign Finance Reports of Chapter 2 of the Village Code of Ordinances to establish campaign finance report filing requirements, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to open this for public comments. Anybody here to speak about campaign finance reports? Pete, we have anybody signed up for campaign finance reports ordinance?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I'm going to close public comments. Mr. Manager or Mr. Attorney?
I'll just
Please
introduce it for the clerk. So under Florida law, it allows local governments to allow for the campaign finance reports to be filed electronically, but you have to adopt an ordinance or a resolution. A couple years ago, cities started to do it. To Jocelyn's credit, she brought this forward. We do have to purchase from a software company to allow for this to occur. So there is an annual cost, but it's minimal from what I understand, and we're implementing that.
Okay. Any comments by council?
Nope. This will really help, I think, candidates.
Yeah. Call it.
Councilmember Sagarola.
Yes.
Mayor Davey.
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan.
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo.
Yes.
Councilmember London.
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moss.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted on second reading.
And just something to the speaker's point before. So what this website will do is this will be on our website, so everybody, it'll be completely transparent.
Perfect.
Everybody will be able to look at it at all times, what everybody's doing. No longer, there won't be a need for public records requests. They will be all there on the website for everybody to see.
Excellent.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. The next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, selecting Black & Veatch Corporation to provide professional engineering, project management, and related services for the Resilient Infrastructure Program Strategy and Integrated Implementation Plan and Supporting Program Management and Execution Services Project, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Excuse me, I couldn't.
Second, sorry.
And who moved?
Oh, Kaplan.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As you and the rest of the council members know, this is something we've been briefing, both Ro and I have been briefing over the last 2 weeks. As we know, we are facing some significant sea level rise with environmental changes in the village, and we have been developing a program strategy over the last 6 months. Part of that strategy is to bring on a firm to assist us in further developing that strategy, but most importantly is developing an integration implementation plan that will take all the studies and assessments we've done in the past and really begin to put this into action. So I ask for your authorization to go ahead and begin a negotiation with Black & Veatch. I'll bring back to you for your approval.
Okay. Comments, questions? Roland, you had something to say?
Better not.
No, I mean, I want to support the manager in this request. I mean, it's an imperative that we have a very clear roadmap for all the projects that are happening on all the lines of effort over the next 10, 15 years. And they've all got to be sequenced properly and scheduled properly and phased properly. It's going to be one of the biggest things that Key Biscayne does over the next 10, 15 years in all of its history. And I think this is a very important and very large next big step.
Agreed. Councilmember Laredo, then Councilmember London.
My support and vote on this is entirely 100% a reflection on my confidence in the village manager and the staff, because as you know, I have very strong views about the use of consultants. So I trust it. I trust that he has looked at it very clinically about making the biggest impact for the buck. So, but this is a vote of confidence for me. So I think it's a good thing.
Councilmember London.
Well, any idea how much it's going to cost? What are you looking at him for?
Well, there's three components of this. One is the program strategy itself. And obviously we have to sit down with the firm and estimate what that would be. The second part is that implementation integration plan. That'll be the details on how to do it. The third part, which right now we can never estimate until what we're going to do is we're going to actually come back with a rate sheet for program management, construction management, project management. So that'll be the approval. And as we go forward with each individual project, we'll actually bring it back to council for the approval. So what I'm really asking to do is to negotiate the first two projects and then a rate sheet for further projects in the future.
What are the first two projects?
Program strategy and the implementation plan.
Implementation. I understand the program strategy, deciding on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
Correct.
Strategy.
But the implementation plan is the specifics of exactly how we're going to sequence it, how they work together.
I mean, you're telling me that with all the people we have on staff and great people, I'm looking at a few of them right here, that they can't do that.
Actually, no. This is something that is very, very detailed, very, very. We need a level of expertise that we do not have on this staff. Not only just a level of expertise, but the amount of time and effort it takes. You know, we need to continue to run the village on an everyday basis. This is something that the village has not undertaken. And one of the things, if you recall, during our discussion, is that we've had haphazard construction over the years, which has actually caused some of the problems that we have right now. What we want to do is we want to embark on a plan that is not haphazard. That's very detailed, very specific, very well thought out, so we can actually protect this island.
Well, that's before we had you and Roland and the rest of the staff.
Excuse me?
The haphazard was before we had you and Roland and other good
No,
people.
I wouldn't place it on anyone before. I think it's just the history of the key. I mean, from when it was built back in the 1940s after World War II and the way in which it was approached, no one ever thought of sea level rise. No one really thought of much of the environmental changes we're going through.
Again, I am not usually like Luis. I don't mind hiring consultants. He doesn't hire them, but I like to have consultants when they're really necessary. And with the way you're discussing and what I've seen you've been able to do so far, I don't see right today that you need anything. That's my.
They're telling us they do.
Sorry?
They're telling us they do.
I know what they're telling us. Okay. Is our thing to be a rubber stamp?
No,
it's
oversight. It's certainly not. It's to be oversight. But
okay, well, fine.
Councilmember Kaplan, I apologize for getting into your time.
I sat through the briefings, multiple briefings, but recently, the most recent sit-down that we had together, was it last week on this particular subject, I came away from that with a sense of strong conviction that if we don't do this, we are setting ourselves up to fail strategically.
Correct.
The way I came to understand the principal purpose of this was to create synergy among simultaneous projects that will proceed on their own timeline, but will need to be linked with multiple timelines and managed in a coordinated way in a fashion and in sequencing that is not currently today perfectly foreseeable.
Yes, and it also has to sequence with everything that's going to be undertaken by the Corps on the ocean side and the bay side.
So I wanted to just simply say that I support this for good reason after studying and listening and thinking about the justification that led to this in the first place, and I'm ready to vote.
Councilmember Lennon.
So basically, you mentioned the Corps, you mentioned these things. How many years before you would anticipate, at the earliest, the Corps is going to do anything?
I would imagine.
So we could do a study now, right?
I would
That's going to take
imagine
how many years
probably
to do
a
a
handful
study?
of years.
How many?
Probably a handful of years.
How many?
Probably a handful of years.
Okay, 5 years. So then, once they do the study, 5 years is done. Before we're implementing and all this stuff, what are we talking about, 10 years? Probably?
You talking for the Corps project?
Implement the Corps part of it.
No, but talk about planning.
I think what if you look at the timeline that we've been given with the Corps, I would say between 6 to 11, probably 6 to 9 years, they would actually begin construction.
Whatever. Fine. So before we're worried about implementing what they're going to do, it's 9 years, correct?
6 to 9 years.
No, 6 to 9 years. Yeah. But knowing government, it's probably closer to 9 than 6. So really what we're talking about is possibly undergrounding, storm sewers, correct? And then we're talking about what else?
Roadways.
Sorry?
Roadways.
Well, that's going to be a combination with the
Road-
storm
Yeah,
sewers.
roadways, undergrounding, stormwater,
Oh, excuse
water
me, the storm
lines,
sewers and
sewer
storm are the same
lines.
thing.
Those all have
Swales,
to be
roadways.
rights of ways. Those all have to work together in a particular geographic area in a sequenced manner that minimizes disruption to that area and to all the other areas of the village.
What is your anticipated
Excuse me,
start
like,
on these
you did
other?
such a good presentation. You made me, when I met with you guys, that you convinced me that you're capable. Really, you did. And you did a great job. I really was impressed. So now to go ahead and say, well, hell, we're not capable. We need some other people. Really, to me, just doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right. Can we call the question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item.
Next item is a capital project authorizing resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, selecting Raindrop Products LLC for the splash pad replacement project in an amount not to exceed $195,000, providing for authorization, providing for an effective date.
Moved. Second.
Thank you.
Excited about the opportunity to have a fantastic new splash pad out at the Village Green. I don't know if you've seen the images.
The what, I'm sorry?
A new splash pad. The water feature on the Village Green between the two playgrounds.
Oh, okay.
We have a dated old one that the surface is deteriorated, the equipment malfunctions frequently, and I think this is a fantastic alternative. I think it's very functional. It adds a lot. If you look at how many elements are included in the new splash pad, I think it'll be received extremely well.
And the walkway is already redone?
Yeah, we were happy that we completed the Village Green
It has been done.
resurfacing 2 weeks ago. Great contractor, responsive, happy to have that project done. Now the kids can go really fast on their scooters.
I would, ready to vote.
Yeah. Anybody? All right, call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Wow. He's getting soft in his old age.
The next item is reports and recommendations. Village manager,
Can we
managers
take a
report.
5-minute break, maybe? No.
You want a 5-minute break before we do this?
Please, yeah.
Okay, 5 minutes, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I can say one thing before you go?
Yes, you can say one thing.
It was 3 months ago where Councilmember London did not know what a splash pad is. Now he's approved the vote, so we have seen progress.
I voted for it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Talk with the village. I'm actually in pretty good shape right now. Are you on Were you thinking about
I'd like that.
Hey, what do I do? I'm like, no. Please, I just need a yes. In public, so everyone can hear it. I'm starting to get a complex here. You hug me, you give me cupcakes. No. Roger. You gotta go over, I go over. I do it personal business. So the best I'm trying to do is get I know. You've been here a long time, though. Years. I'm new. He knows I'll call Claire if he doesn't. That's the trick. I'm starting to learn here. I'm starting to learn. From what I'm seeing, is I got to put Claire first. That's what I keep asking about. I'm not going to stop it until I get Absolutely. No, makes sense. I was wondering where I'm getting audio from.
It burned your eardrum. You can't see the presentation. That's.
Oh, just be careful, mic is hot. We can ask Pete to activate it. Yeah, that way you can see it.
It's on Zoom, right?
Okay. Is it on Zoom? You'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
It's not projected. Hold on. Hold on, let me just try it.
She's running the presentation from there, but let me give it. See what slide we're talking about.
Pete, I'm gonna share the screen now.
Yep.
Jump. I just make sure. Just make sure they're all hot.
I took those like a compliment here when everybody else. I didn't know first. You know, like what's going on? Is like a compliment here, like there's like some like a festival or something. Because you take your own view from here.
And then you have the roads back here, so I'm gonna.
Yeah.
You know, like it's funny you don't really see when you see them at your end.
Okay. Yeah, because that area they rent the cruise for some Usual. Yeah. Yes. In the blazing sun.
It was like 10 o'clock.
That was the good old days with the words.
What is this? Somebody put here. There are a lot of stuff they put here. What's this here? You did?
Oh, so, Councilmember Linden wants it as a discussion item. in
Oh,
draft.
on the noise thing.
Yes, you
Okay.
print out the noise.
Okay, the noise ordinance. Okay, that's what I thought.
So I just wanted to make sure.
It's weird. I have the pictures of email.
All right, let's go. Yes, we're going. We're doing the manager's report. All right. I don't know, but let's just get going. It's 8:40, guys. You know, we're getting a little cocky on our time. We're doing so well on time. Let's keep moving. Look how many things we've done today. We've been really efficient and effective. All right, we're back on the clock.
This giant book is almost done.
The next item Reports and recommendations, village manager, manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, council members, as we enter into or come close to hurricane season, we want to make sure that we gave you a quick presentation to make sure that you knew that we are preparing and will be prepared for this year's hurricane season. So, Chief Honey.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. So it's about being ready, right? This is not new news. June 1st is the start of hurricane season. It's predicted to be a higher than normal activity. If I could get to the next slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. The first thing we're doing is we're preparing our staff. We're making sure they're trained. There's a number of different trainings that we need to go. Some are online, some are in person. So we have a number of new players, and we're all speaking the same language. Next thing we want to be working on is the community. Next slide, please. And is the community. And we're doing this when the sun's shining in this preparations phase. We have a security directors meeting where if anybody hasn't met Chief Souza yet, they're going to get a chance to meet him. They're going to get a chance to meet the rest of the directors. If they haven't met yet, our staff, our team is going to basically lead our way through the preparation phase and ultimately response. We're tightening up our evacuation plan. I know some of the council members exercise that with us in Irma. And it's just as important for us to evacuate during a mandatory evacuation as it is for us to get back onto the island and conduct our search and rescue and our response. And we're implementing the plan to make that effective. And that's led by our police department. I think you've met Jessica. She does an incredible job of communicating. We're stepping up our communications. We've already got plans for things to go out to the Islander News. We had an open house at the fire station with police and fire represented, and we were talking about how the community can get ready, and we're already passing out hurricane guides. I would like to thank you tonight for approving the monitoring agreement, which is one of the components that we need to get reimbursed. The monitor, make sure that the debris manager or ASHPRIT, that their trucks are certified, that they're full, if you will, or how much debris is in them, so we can get reimbursed. So it's a very important component. There's a term we talk about all the time. It's called COOP. It's basically the hotel that we go to run our operation when we're not here. It's called continuity of operations. So we move to the hotel when it's time for us to evacuate the island, and we have our continuity of government, if you will, which is similar to the business continuity in the private sector. It's important for us to get all these generators and all the equipment, everything off the key. There's been communities that have staged equipment in low-lying areas, and they've lost equipment, and we want to protect our equipment. We have a place to put our boats, our generators, all of the things that we're going to need to get back. It's important for us to document what our buildings look like, the beaches look like, so we can work on a reimbursement process. And something that I've talked to you about before is our debris management plan. We pick up, things get moving a little bit slow. If you remember, we go out, we push the streets. Ideally, we're doing that on the first day back. Make sure all our roadways are clear, all the debris is up on the side of the road. It takes a few days for us to get going and actually start to pick up that debris. In a perfect world, we put it in a temporary debris staging site. The question is, where is that? If you remember last time, it was in Crandon Park. Right now, Crandon Park hasn't given us approval to have a temporary debris staging site there. We're talking to the State Park. We haven't gotten approval from them yet either. We're talking to the City of Miami. We haven't gotten approval there yet either. But I think that when there's a storm, that opportunities will open up for these temporary debris staging sites, and we'll get approved. And if not, we have a backup plan and enough equipment with our contractor, ASHPRIT, to do what they call direct hauling. So it's something that our staff, Public Works, myself, are actively working on. And finally, we'll be having a hurricane exercise coming up May, June. We'll be participating with the City of Miami, which is our direct report, if you will, to the OC. And I can assure you that this team is ready. Next slide is basically, this is Hurricane Irma. And if you remember, it was Labor Day. Everybody was having fun at the beach. It's beautiful weather. And now the sun is shining. Then now's the time to come up with our plan and talk about it. Because all of a sudden, one day, we're going to be watching a storm out there and under a hurricane watch, hurricane warning, and things start to move a lot faster. It's been a pleasure, to be honest, to hear some of the pretty awesome stories that Steve has been involved with, and he's no stranger to disaster. I've enjoyed the time that I've been working with him and preparing for this. And the last couple slides are our partners. I'm not a big fan of giving out ice and water, and my goal is to get Winn-Dixie open if there's a storm. That's our goal. We want them to be able to provide the ice. We want them to be able to provide the supplies for this community. And so working with the gas stations, CVS, the restaurants, to be able to get the infrastructure working and in order to support this community getting back up on its feet. And finally, there's some pictures on the last slide that were from Hurricane Irma. Our roads were blocked. We had heavy equipment out here. Our power was down. And if you remember just a little bit, it's a reminder that we were impacted. We had 55,000 cubic yards of debris. And if we had a significant storm, a Category 3, we could potentially have 1 million yards of debris, which is going to take a significantly, it's going to take a lot more time. I know what you're thinking, Ed, if you know, is like the probability of us getting hit by a storm is so low, but we're still going to be ready. And I agree with you. And so, I've said it's like a drunk guy throwing darts. You don't know where it's going to go, but either way, we got to be ready. So if I can wrap that up, and just on the tail end, I in a very somber way, I want to thank the mayor and council for that moment of silence and recognizing Ron and the work and he's done out here. There's a lot more to come from us and some more statements. And I talked to Victoria tonight, and she was extremely appreciative to the entire community. And we've gotten calls from across the country in support of Ron, and I assure you, because I've gotten a lot of questions, we'll honor him.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to have the Jeremy come up and give just a quick presentation update of where we're standing on the vision plan and the way forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Running the presentation. So just a general overall picture. Essentially, we had the charrette in February, and everything that happened before that event was really just getting ready for that event. Everything that's happened subsequent to that event is just processing what was produced during that event. So the team right now is, I would say we had a very successful charrette event. We had really excellent attendance, a lot of participation.
For the rest of the people who don't know what charrette is,
charrette means little cart.
No, but I mean seriously, so that because we have people watching, it's a public hearing.
Workshops.
Okay.
Yeah.
The people are getting input.
It was the workshops where
Otherwise,
we
it sounds
had
like
public input.
Yes.
Public input, but also like very direct engagement where they were producing everything in the room.
Correct.
So the next steps, I keep trying to move this myself. So that was the charrette schedule. Next, and some of the evidence of what was produced. And so the team is turning those sketches into more concrete drawings at the moment. Next. And into the actual document, the book, over the next couple of months, our board members are going to be reviewing and giving feedback on the actual draft document. Next. And so the meetings moving forward are that we expect to be able to present to you all a final draft in June. I am contemplating an additional community meeting prior to that with the idea of presenting the overall completed document, which people haven't really had a chance to review won't have had a chance to review since the workshops. And that's all.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's keep going.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
let's go Roland to come up and just give a quick update on the design of the, or I guess this is Jake.
Design of the Sands Public Beach Access?
Sands Public Pathway.
Perfect.
Mr. Manager, and Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I had spoken to Jake earlier. It's not related, but so that people are watching, because a lot of people have come up to me in the last few days about what is happening on the turn as we go out on Crandon, and there's some little
construction
that it looks like if they're going to do another lane. And so I didn't have the answer. He sort of gave me the answer, but I wanted him to say it on the record so that people who are listening would get a
Sure.
sense. It's obviously it's county, but you know.
Yeah, so there are two separate works going on there, council member. One is the county closes one lane and they use those barricades to vegetation clearing and tree clearing. And the second work that's going to happen this summer is actually major work that FPL is replacing their transmission lines that runs on the Cannon Boulevard.
Underground.
From the Marina area all the way down to Calusa substation. We were made aware of this a few weeks ago. The county reached out to the manager's office. Actually, FPL was proposing closing one lane outbound 24/7 for several months. And of course, right. So we did have a mini heart attack. And then we called out the meeting. And the county actually stood up on our behalf and helped us a lot. So we had a long meeting with FPL. We told them this is not going to happen. It couldn't happen. It's a suicide for Key Biscayne. And then we had a subsequent meeting. The FPL actually come to terms to do the work at night. And it's going to start at 7:30 at night. And it's going to end at 5:30 in the morning. Again, this is outbound, going out of Key Biscayne, one lane, closed at night, Sunday night through Thursday.
How long
It will
is the
be several
closure?
months.
What's the length? Is it all the way?
It's
Is it just a small piece?
the entire length, because they're going to stage their equipment
Entire lane from one end all the way down to the barricade?
down to by the marina. Yes. Yeah, it is a big work. And but again, the county really helped us.
No, but let's see how it goes and let's monitor. Keep monitoring. Okay.
Again,
But it's not a new lane.
No.
People thinking they're going to
it's
build a
not.
third lane, so that's
There's
one
no
thing.
new
it's
lane
not-
being proposed. There's no changes to the traffic patterns on the roadway itself. It's just it's a maintenance of traffic for FPL work. But some of the barricades that you see now, that they use it to clear lane to the vegetation, the tree
Yeah.
trimming, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Thank
But
you
that's
so much
coming
for
this summer, the FPL's work. And they're going to bring us the final plan on what's going to look like. And then once we have it, we'll share it with the council.
And
Talk
of
about
course,
your
we
three
will make
items
that
for tonight.
through your.
Sorry?
Talk about your three items tonight.
Information thing.
Excuse me, Jack, where is the cable located? Is that would be with the bike path?
It's going to be on closer to under the bike path. So apparently there is no right of way. So the right of way of the roadway itself does not extend beyond the pavement.
Okay.
So they're going to try to be as close as to the bike path. It's going to be directional bore, but every few hundred feet they're going to stage their equipment and entry pit and exit pit. So that's why they're going to close the one travel lane.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. The first item that I'm going to give a brief update, this is public beach access pad at Sands Condominium. And as you know, this is one of the first of three that we were able to approve, as it was part of our commitment to Army Corps as part of the coastal CRSM. And so we were able to secure an easement from Sands Condominium, and we would thank Sands for being a good partner. We laid out the design. This design was done in-house between myself and Roland. And can we go to the next slide? So we proposed two different payment sections to the Sands. The one is the visual, they look the same. It's pavers, but one is the pervious pavers is actually stormwater reservoir underneath built in, and the other one is conventional pavers. It has no reservoir built in, and we met with Sands and they were happy. They had some concerns with rest in the design, so they were happy with it. We are currently in bidding process. We are soliciting bids to build this job. If our estimate that it's going to cost us approximately $100,000 to build this, if we go with conventional pavers, and it's going to go up to about $130,000 if we do pervious pavers, and it will be approximately $150 to $160 if we go pervious pavers as well as decorative fence. So we built in bid alternates, and we'll see what the numbers comes with, and depending upon the budget, we'll pick and choose what we want to do.
Right. And this is something we have to do.
Correct. So this
Right,
is
so that
public
people
beach
know that we
access.
have to do this.
Correct. And this is the tail end of the project.
Yeah.
We can check the box.
And Jake, let me interrupt you because, Mr. London, you'll be so happy
I said that I was gonna
that
compliment him.
there was no consultant. And if you see here, it's got the beautiful seal of Jake with his name, a professional engineer, and it was all done in-house.
I have no idea.
All right, I just
Yeah,
want to make
why are
sure
you
I got that in
why are
the
you
record.
riling him up? Don't rile. Let him relax. Let the man relax. He's been busy tonight. Keep going, Jake. You're on a roll.
Okay, well, let's keep it that way.
That was good. Thank you.
Awesome. Next item.
So before we go on to the next item, Mr. Mayor, council members, so we are going to actually hold a community meeting on April 21st,
Awesome.
next Thursday, about this pathway. And also this Thursday, the 14th, we're going to have a community meeting on the Crandon Boulevard as well.
Good.
The new, the two intersections, obviously the entry block intersection and the second intersection. So that I'll be doing on Thursday night this week.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
East Enid Drive street lighting project. I'll piggyback to what I mentioned to council earlier this evening. We are proposing to put 17 lights on East Enid Drive. And this is what we're proposing. This is kind of similar to what we have in the village. It's called Hall of Fame Granville black and black LED light, and is a black Washington concrete post. So these are as part of FPL's tariff. There are a number of light poles and fixtures you can select. It's not unlimited, but there's some good selections. But based on what we have in the village, this was the best fit as far as what we have, kind of matching. And if you were to go with the village-wide conversion, this is what we want to go with. Again, it's just fits the entire village feel and matches what we have.
Is 3,000 Calvin, is that what we should decide? I mean, I know we could do 27, 25.
So we actually, again, this was priced on the 3K, and it may be actually too bright. We want to do a mock lighting and get
Yeah.
out there and then kind of test those levels.
Yeah, I think residential
Right, yeah.
may be lower.
I don't know if it's visible in this image, but there's some yellow lines that kind of represents, it's very hard to see, but it's the first pole is going to be about 50 feet from edge of the sidewalk on Crandon, going east in it, and every other light is 100 foot on center. And we are only putting lights on the southern side, the landscape strip between the curb and the sidewalk. So there will be a total of 17 lights that's going to give a good coverage for lighting. And again, the lighting levels, DOT recommends 0.4 foot candle for local roads and sidewalks. And CPTED, this stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, which the guidelines that put for public safety, they do recommend 1 to 2.5 foot candles for sidewalks. And our design, 17 light, 100 foot on center, it gives about like 2.44 foot candles. So it's kind of like we are on the higher end of what the CPTED recommend. It's kind of be on the more bright end, but again, we can adjust. Again, it's very hard to read, but again, the lights are situated in the south end, and which is the most lit area with about 2.44 foot candles. But as you come close to edge of the buildings at East Enid Drive, it goes down to 0.42. So it's going to be, it's a directional light, and it's not going to impede on residents' bedrooms, and we don't foresee the complaints that are coming in from too much light. But again, there'll be some adjustments made, and we do want to do a mock lighting before we install and see actually how it looks before we go with 3K, 3,000 Kelvin on every single one of them.
I have a quick question, really quick. Quick. Do we own these light posts, and they're just FPL's just in a maintenance agreement? Because there's an upfront cost, and then there's a maintenance service agreement.
Correct. Can we go to the next slide? Again, so the FPL LED lighting program, it is the minimum upfront. For this project, our upfront cost $16,000. So if you were to do street lights on a street that had no concrete work, if they didn't have to excavate asphalt or concrete, upfront cost would be zero. The only cost that they charge us is actually directional drilling for the conduits. So since there was minimal cost on East Inlet, because most of them were able to place it on landscape area, our upfront cost is about $16,300. Now, monthly fee, it's actually a little bit different than what you see in Agenda 665, because FPL made an error. They computed based on 16 lights, but we actually have 17. So total fee monthly for the entire East Inlet is $665. So that's monthly fee per light is $39. So we're gonna pay $16,000 one-time fee to get it installed. And our lighting agreement will be for 10 years. And for the 10 years, we'll pay $39.11 per pole per month. And that includes energy, that includes repair, maintenance, service, and all that.
And if we decide not to pay it, or at the end of that, they basically can come and just remove the lights, right? It's theirs.
You could extend the agreement for another 5 years and subsequent 5 years. And if you were to stop the agreement, you could buy the lights from FPL at the discounted value, whatever that they may worth after 10 years. We can purchase it, we can own it. And we did I think the next slide, I'm going to talk about that. It's a village-wide streetlight project. So we looked at the entire village, and we actually went out and photo documented each light, regardless of ownership. So we have 487 streetlights on the public right-of-ways in the village, and 196 out of 487 is owned by us. So those are the ones that we actually installed and maintained, but it was done 20 years ago or 5 years ago. It's all ours. And we have about 291 owned by Miami-Dade County or FPL. So most of the Miami-Dade County owned ones are in Crandon Boulevard, the corridor, and there are some in the special taxing district on the west side of the island, and there are some that are owned by FPL. So there are 3 different ownership exist. And Jocelyn, could you click the link on ArcGIS? I just want to get a quick. If it opens.
Jake, how many lights would it take to light the entire island at a 100-foot interval?
We don't know. I mean, we did inventory. Now we know what we have.
At 800?
Well, whatever I say will be no more than wild guesstimate. I have no idea, sir. It's very hard. Okay, so we actually provided this link, and just if you just want to pick one light. Okay, and then so for example, that light's on number is 185. Is located at whichever street, but again owned by FPL. And then we photo logged it. I think there's a link you can click to and it gives you a photo. So shout out to Kat Kulpa and Nata. I actually went out there and did this analysis. We turned over to FPL. Did a quick look on what we have so far, and if you were to convert all 400 and whatever number we have, payback period to get our money will be about 12 and a half years. And based on what the Florida statute says, the limitations is about 20 years. So it's a good return if you were to convert all the FPL. But again, we are in the very beginning of this discussion with FPL. There are a number of different things that come into play. Ultimately, we want FPL to take the entire ownership, but we're going to have to sit down and negotiate what the price is. For example, we installed a number of lights on Furman Road in 2018, so they're only 4 years old. So if FPL was to take over, they actually have to purchase them from the village and then maintain it. So we actually sell them our assets. But there'll be some discussion that we're going to have FPL and put a price on. And
yeah, could we also negotiate if we want to buy back
correct
from them,
right,
that we buy it at a certain price?
So correct, of course. For example, 10 years. If you want to, at the end of the term at 10 year, we want to know what's going to cost it, the depreciated value of the light, so that we can decide whether we want to extend out to 5 years or 10 years after that.
All those red dots, though, represent the lights, or
those
no?
are the lights,
Yeah,
correct.
there's a lot of lights.
We have
on
that
it.
many lights?
Yes.
We do.
You know,
So-
Mr. Moss asked her, I think he did mention before, and I want to make sure we have the right design and we don't do And I know it's kind of, we do have a vision board that is meeting and making. Also, let's worry about our aesthetics a little bit so that we don't, now this is, we approved a little street, but
Right.
moving forward, we need to kind of, and I'm sure you're probably doing it.
Yes, so in the village, we have a number of different lights because it did not follow any uniformity as far as the lighting levels, illumination, or the light pole or the fixture itself. It's probably 12 different kinds out there. But the ones that has been installed recently, the one in Crandon Boulevard, I believe, maybe 10, 15 years old, probably in the Fermer Road, other areas, we picked this, I forgot what the category is, but we tried to match what's there that kind of fits the village feel.
Okay.
They're about 16 and a half feet mounting height. The total height ends up being about like 20 feet. And, but again, there's the menu of lights available, and then if you were to change it, we'll pick one, but we go with it, but we want to give some uniformity. Just looking at this map, Councilmember London, to answer your question, if this is about 490, maybe 800 will do it, I don't know.
I was just taking, you got
Just looking at
1,300
dots.
single-family homes, assume they're 75-foot frontage, something like that, that's going
Right,
to give you about
yeah.
800. Plus the other side got at least 1,000.
Yeah.
So 1,000, we'd be paying FP&L $500,000 a year for electricity to maintain the lights. So the question is, at $500,000 a year, if we had solar lights, what's the payback period? Again, with the $16,000 upfront cost. That's what I'm
But
looking at.
again, FPL is not a solar light business right now, they may be in the future.
Well, I'm not
and-
saying FP&L, I'm saying, let's assume they're not.
We did that.
Right.
Obviously, they're not.
We're generating electricity.
So I'm saying, if we put them in there and then had a contractor maintain them,
Okay.
whatever maintenance is
Understood.
required.
And again, we are looking into solar lights, and
That's all.
when the technology gets there, we're gonna get there too.
All right. So the East Enid lights, you're gonna come back and you're gonna look at the different Kelvin?
Yeah, Calvin is the one. the-
No, I understand, but that's what you're gonna look at those and figure out
Right.
and make a determination.
So actually, so I got new information from FPL. So once we give them deposit based on, it'll be before the council in May. It's about 6 months.
Okay.
Waiting on the poll. So if the council gives us green light in May, figure about it's gonna be 4 to 6 months before it can install it. So it looks like end of the year. It's as fast as you wanna move. Unfortunately, still the manufacturing backlog is there.
Next item?
And Jay, one thing, if I could, Mr. Mayor, Jake, if you would, I think our choice, I think 4,000 Kelvin is going to be too light, but let's,
Yeah, it is,
if we could give some sort of demonstration of what
Right.
3,000 and 2,500 looks, so people can actually see the difference between the two.
Correct. So we talked to FPL, but they can actually bring some lights at night, and then we can actually check it out and decide. Yeah.
Good.
Okay, this is another map that we had, again, just shows the ownership of the lights distributed. Okay.
Introduction to,
And I think next item is mine as well. no, the-
yeah, it's still you.
The operation maintenance.
So next one up, Mr. Mayor, council members, is, we've had a lot of obviously interest in the operations, maintenance, and repair of the village. And one of the things that I've asked Jake to do, now that he's freed up from the BZP job, is really to focus his time and effort on taking care of things
Good.
that we need to address now. So this is basically an outline of where we're going. I think you've already seen that we're moving out pretty quickly as well right now. And we'll actually be kicking off quicker, faster, better, more over the next couple months.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And again, we understand our community is aging and we have to act. And we need a robust repair and maintenance program in place to keep up with it and to satisfy our residents. So our guiding principles, I don't have to read it, but again, we want to make sure that, what we do is fits the village's character and appearance, and we want to maintain them well. And we want to provide consistent preventive maintenance and repairs on time. And we want to make sure that ensure projects and contracts provide utmost functionality, and we are fiscally responsible. And the requirement is, first, we have to build a comprehensive database of what assets we own. As you may know from the last couple of council meetings, we did say that we're going to payment condition index, which is a truck that has like a camera mounted in front that drives all the roads. We want to see what the roads look like. we want to take the opportunity to actually expand the scope of work and create a full inventory of all the right-of-way assets. So what we did was we scanned and inventoried everything that is out there in the road as well as on the side. So we have the inventory of the roads, the curbs and gutters, the trash cans, the stop signs, street lights, traffic lights, you name it. So this data has been collected last week. And what we did was, because we negotiated lump sum, because they do per mile, but we are small, we actually surveyed entire private condominiums as well. So this actual data will be available for condos to use if they want to use it for their own capital improvements. So we'll provide it for free of charge. And so data is being processed, and probably in a month or so, we're going to have our full inventory, which we're going to load it to our asset management system, so we can actually hold ourselves accountable. So now we know what we have to attack, what we have to repair, and when we have to repair. So that was very good and money well spent on our end to get that done and kind of merge it with payment condition index. So once we have the database of assets that's there, we know what we have, then we can actually put a plan together to provide preventive maintenance and budget for it, and every year evaluate that plan and fine tune it. So the purposes of the maintenance program, we created 6 categories or assets. Number 1 is grounds and landscaping. Again, that includes all the green space and the right-of-ways. The second is athletic fields or the parks, the Village Green, St. Agnes Field, and other fields. Right-of-ways, and well, actually, I should have said hardscape. It's really our curbs and gutters and sidewalks and hard surfaces. That's third, and the fourth asset is stormwater system, which we're going to be doing a lot of improvements on. Number 5 is vertical facilities, which is this building, the fire station, administration, the police station, community center. And the last asset is our fleet. So those are the 6 groups that we're going to have and categorize. Implementation plan. So we have long-term and short-term plans. I'm going to talk about short-term, what we're going to be doing in the next several weeks to a few months. For grounds and landscaping, we are very appreciative of council the last budget season, your provision positions. So Public Works now have 4 people in field, and we also have 2 code compliance officers, and kudos to BZP and Jeremy. Our actually code compliance officers and Public Works work very well together, and they complement each other, so they did a great job. And one of the major things they want to do is expand our current landscape scope of work to include litter removal. We understand there's a concern out there that it's more litter than we can handle. We have 1 full-time position that nothing but all day does litter control. So we want to do 1.5. So we're going to contract it out the second portion and provide more coverage. And we also want to expand scope of work and add minor maintenance to the landscape contract so we can resort to those services needed. And we feel that athletic fields are not really a forte of existing contractor. So we will be removing athletic field maintenance and possibly bid that out and get a company that has experience in maintaining athletic fields. And we're thinking, so that's going to be in the summer, and expanded grounds and landscape RFP, we're thinking we will release it on December 22, end of this year. Our current contract expires in July, so timing kind of works out. It's going to take us about a few months to solicit, bring it before the council and all that. So by the time the contract is up, we'll be ready to implement a new contract. In the next several weeks, our focus, you will see a lot of work happening on the field, including increased, enhanced landscaping. We'll be doing some lighting projects, East Unit Drive. We'll be doing tree trimming, repair of bike racks. There'll be additional park elements being repaired. Again, walkway repairs, litter removal, as I mentioned. Pressure washes starting next week. We're going to pressure wash the entire Crandon. I believe on next Thursday or Friday. I think it's going to go on the Village Connect this Wednesday, tomorrow. And then we're going to repair the playgrounds. athletic fields. Again, it's been managed by our landscape contractor and Parks and Recreation and Open Space under Todd's leadership. What we want to do is develop a RFP and then actually have a contractor specifically for athletic fields. And we'll release that in July. And in the very near future, our areas of focus are St. Agnes lighting replacement job and laser grading and sod replacement at the same location at St. Agnes. Okay. Right away, Public Works, again, we are, I'm working along with procurement to solicit a bid document for a contractor. It's almost like a requirements contract, so we have pre-negotiated rates to repair curbs and sidewalks and stormwater pipes so that we don't actually get held up by getting 3 bids. So that's underway. So once we have it, it's just going to save a lot of time to resort to this contractor and get things done instead of waiting weeks, sometimes months, to get a small work done. So that's being developed. Again, in the next several weeks, you should expect to see a lot of curb repairs, paver repairs, traffic circles. I think we repaired a number of them, and this week there's another one underway. We'll do sidewalk repairs. Pavement condition index is being done. Some fence work, beach park fences ordered that's going to be replaced, and next week you should expect to see street light painting on Crandon. All the street lights will be painted. Stormwater system. This never stopped. As you know, again, appreciate the council that they're giving us the budget to clean the entire system once a year. Years ago, we were only doing 10 to 15%, which is bare minimum required by the law. We are doing 100% right now. And again, it never stopped. Continue to clean catch basin, manholes, our piping, our outfalls. And there's one specific project that we looked at, Palm Lake drainage improvements. There's an area that there's extensive amount of the ponding, and I think we have the solution. So we're thinking that's going to be done in the next couple of months. Again, we're soliciting pricing, but it's taking some time to get 3 bids. Okay.
You mentioned that was Palmwood?
Palmwood Lane, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, facilities. Currently, our facilities are maintained by CBM, Coastal Building Management. They provide mostly janitorial services and minor maintenance. So we want to develop a new RFP, and again, scheduled to be released in July 22. We want to have enhanced facility services. We are also in process of hiring public works superintendent. Again, appreciate the council that approved this position last year. It was taking us some time to find the right fit. Unfortunately, there's not many people out there, but I think we are getting there. So once we have that, this public works superintendent will be in charge of facilities as well. And area of focus, again, we want to do a full facilities maintenance. We want to schedule our repairs at a time so we can actually do things before they break. We want to enhance janitorial. We want to take care of Calusa building. We want to, I think the painting work is online to be done on the Village Green bathroom. And we also want to kind of get rid of the orange looking walls that's kind of outdated and possibly come out with a new color palette and paint them. Number 6 is police, fleet, I'm sorry, currently maintained by, managed by our police department, and the maintenance and repairs are provided by City of Miami Beach, as well as the 4 dealerships where the new car is under warranty. And what we're going to look at in the short term is to look at current maintenance contract and make recommendations for improvements. And that's the last area that I have, and that's all I got.
When was the last time we took a bid on the cleaning and maintenance?
Apparently 15 to 20 years ago, I believe.
20 years ago?
Right.
Do you think it's time we put it out for bid again?
When was it bid? It goes back, way back.
Do you think it's time?
Well past its time, yeah.
It's on the schedule.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I think the first thing we need to address is facilities, because I think we're at the 20-year point where I think that's the biggest cost we could bear, but fleet is next.
Yeah. I'm talking about the facilities.
No, facilities, that's the number
That's
one.
what I'm saying, facilities.
It's on the, it's coming up.
Good, okay.
Sometimes I just want to say thank you very much for the presentation. And I think this is probably going to be built into your presentation, but I think it's very important that, you know, what I call the inspection, you know, making sure that we have boots on the ground from our staff on a regular basis, going out and looking at our assets and the conditions that they're in. So if there is a problem, we already know there's a system, somebody went out there, who went out there, what they were there. This is what was wrong with it. Some things might only need to have that occur once a year. Others might need to be daily. Sometimes they need to be at nighttime versus daytime, right? Because sometimes lights are out or blinking or something. So somebody needs to see that. Something that you might want to think about once you get this a little bit farther is how we communicate that. Because a lot of times you see something broken and everybody thinks that, nothing's happening with this. The city's not doing anything, but it could be that you guys already inspected, you already have a work order out and it's coming and somehow people need to know it's in process. Don't worry, we're taking care of it. So that you don't start getting all these complaints coming in and they're, you know, the city's never proactive, but actually we are, but you just didn't know that that's what was happening. So we have to think about the communication aspect at some point.
A very good point, council member. Actually, so we have this investment in CityWorks, the asset management software, which is GIS based. Actually, the whole thing they described is there. It's I guess a matter of connecting to our website, and I'll get with our communications officer. We can make that available.
Okay.
And what we did was I asked my entire staff, the entire work that we do, regardless of how small or how big it is, it's put in the system, so we actually have accountability on what we do and how we do and how quickly we turn it around. And also creating this new inventory of system, inventory of assets, going to help us a great deal on documenting what we have, because it's the human nature. You miss it if it's not broken. So, but if I know that it's there, I can actually see when it was inspected by who, or how long has it been inspected. So it gives us tools to kind of manage, you know, our assets proactively. So I think we're going to get there very soon, and makes our job easier.
Thank you.
I'd like to credit Isabel de la Cruz with a suggestion that she provided this morning, hearkening to the country of Rwanda, which evidently goes out as an entire nation once a year, led by the president, and picks up litter. Not once a year, more frequently than that. I thought that was a good suggestion, so if you see something, feel free to pick it up, as happens on the beach.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Two things I'd like to add before we bring Colleen up for the final portion of this is the two parts that are going to go with that. Number one, we're working on improving the VKB 311 app. That way we can actually receive people's requests through that app. Right now, it's not fully developed, but we're working on that so the residents can actually identify things that are required, would actually come in and actually interfaces with CityWorks, and then Jake's folks will be able to go out and do the work. And secondly, Councilmember London, we're going to kick off the beautification task force. I think nominations are due this Friday, and then we'll have our first meeting the last week of April. So we are bold. We're going to move forward.
May I just add very briefly, because we struggled with this from when I first got here, and it's changed the attitude. See something, do something also for staff in terms of things that need maintenance, even though that's not your job. You could be in the clerk's office, because as you recall, you know, there were things that as a citizen I would say, you know, you're coming in and out of somebody, you know. So I think that besides the methodology and all the management checks that you have, it's a change in attitude. If you work here, you know, take care of it. If you see something, you know, take it back to this building and tell it. That's going to be a big plus. I think I can see that turning. Yes. Thinking maintenance.
No, I appreciate it. And Jake's taking that up, as well as Todd, too. As we're out and about, you know, everyone's looking. Everyone's making sure that we address issues that are on the ground.
Thank you.
Okay, so our last item for tonight, I think most of you have met Colleen, but if you have not, Colleen is our new Capital Improvement Program Manager and Grant Manager. Welcome. And she's going to give you an update on our current capital plan. We have two projects in that you could probably skip and just hit that one because they've already been presented.
Yes.
But they beat you to it, so.
Oh, we have a couple more details on those, but I guess first let's start with the next slide. There are a few updates since we gave you your packets. We are actually finished with the planning portion of the K8 basin not the design. We're not.
And a
gonna
copy of
start-
this is in your book if you need to see a little bit closer. If this is an eye.
It's very tiny. It's tiny for me too. And then we are also finished with the planning portion of the design for utility undergrounding. And as Jake presented, we've completed the design of the beach park, or the beach access to the sands. So those are just a few little updates.
Is there anything between page 2 and 3, or is it just printed twice?
There's a little, we've highlighted the 3 projects that we're gonna
okay.
then go into a little more. We can make that a little darker.
Oh, I see it.
It's a little hard to see.
Yeah, the highlights really. But I thank you for having it separated. It's much easier for me to read it, at least.
No, it does look good. It does look better.
The stage of the projects.
We thought you'd notice that. And
Oh,
next
I
time, one of
noticed
the council members, we may move it by amount, and then we'll just keep moving. We got that.
Sort
one.
it any way you want. The first project we're going to talk about is the splash pad, which Todd presented on. We have completed the design. It is Key Biscayne themed with the lighthouse and marine species around it. It has twice as many play features, so that's wonderful. The new budget, as you just approved, is $195,000. The contract amount was $188,635, and we have a 3.25 contingency built in there. So that's how the 195 came about. And the next phase is permitting. So, the next project. The Village Green interior sidewalk looks great. Phase 1 and Phase 2 are complete. We have completely finished the invoicing for that project as of today, and it came in just a little bit over budget, but well within a margin of error. So we're happy with that.
Can we put these two things in your village, whatever? Connect. Without the budget, just so people can see.
Ultimately, that's one of the things I've asked Colleen to do is as we build this capital plan, the entire 28 projects will actually have a picture and a worksheet on the website that people can click into.
But then I agree with Councilmember Laredo. As we complete things, let's tout our successes and
Oh,
say.
you talk about the touting, okay.
Yeah, and including the project that is not completed, the splash thing, people also say, oh, wow, that's coming, that's nice. I mean, it's nice. Accentuate the nice.
Right, okay.
For our
Yeah, we can work
taxpayers.
with Jessica on the best way to do that.
Perfect.
The next and final project Jake just completed talking about is the beach access at the sands.
Perfect.
We're starting procurement. The design portion is complete thanks to Jake. It looks great, and our construction is the next process.
Awesome.
I do have a question. The Paradise Park, right? So we did a groundbreaking, fence went up. Doesn't seem like much is moving now with the fence up. Is there stuff moving out there yet, or just want to know where we are? When are we going to see some trucks? When are we going to see some real stuff moving?
Sure, there was some trucks, there was some.
I saw some
soil
sand, a little thing of sand.
Removal was done.
Right.
Next, they were supposed to be this week doing the abandonment of the wells, but that got postponed, so that should be in a week or two. And we've been pushing the contractor to get going. Jake and I were talking earlier. We requested a meeting for this week to get an updated timeline to initiate the project.
So you think we're weeks away from full blast construction going on over
I'll
there?
have a better answer for you after Friday
Right.
when we sit down with them.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, next item.
That finishes the
Councilmember Laredo.
Next item, Key Biscayne Community School PTA, Councilmember Laredo.
I just wanted to, well, perhaps you can give us a briefing of the manager. We made the big policy decision to follow the model of the Rickenbacker and be focused and give the support of the council to this project. I know you had a wonderful meeting yesterday. I could not attend, but perhaps, people ask me how we're doing.
I think
some
we're-
who can't attend, so those, I hear that we're, you have meetings, et cetera, and
Yeah, look, we're trying
We
to
need to tell
move
people, yeah.
so what we've been trying to do is getting people to understand the role of the village in education matters. We're not directly engaged, but we are directly engaged. It's not our area of expertise, but we do want to support our local schools whenever we can. So yesterday we had a town hall with the Education Advisory Board was also there to sort of talk about ways in which the village can assist our residents either in advocating for our residents or taking specific actions for our residents. One of the ideas we talked about is that, there's a dearth of support for basically kids with reading issues or other learning disabilities. And we have a lot of talented people in this community. I mean, you brought it up before. We have a lot of people in this community who can afford, can avail, they will make themselves available to assist in these sort of programs. So what we're trying to do is figure out what's the best way forward from there. The EAB is going to come forward to us probably next meeting with something to discuss what concrete steps we can take as a village to assist. There are residents who are going to go down and speak at the school board meeting tomorrow, subject to, the recommendation of Councilmember London. And I'm going to continue to interact with the superintendent and sort of explain where we are, what our residents are looking for, the concerns they have. He asked me a couple of weeks ago, we had a phone call. He said, look, get them to send me the areas they want action in so we can create a plan. So he's on our side. Everybody seems to be working together. I know the manager is meeting with Principal Cotto tomorrow, I think. School board member's been made herself available to us. So we're moving forward in a collaborative effort. That's the goal here. We all need to be working together. We all need to be, as you say, the same way we did the Rickenbackers, the same way we make things. When we work with people, we get a lot better results than when we try to fight people on things right off the bat, because it immediately gets their backs up. But yeah, no, I think things are going well. The PTA has been weighing in. It's been nice to work with them. They're doing a heck of a job, and so appreciate that.
Thank you, that's good. Stay the course.
Okay, next item.
And we stay engaged on MAST as well.
100%.
Yes.
I saw Dr. Coleman today at the Giving Tree, and she's incredible. Everybody loves her. She's doing just an amazing job in challenging times, but she's doing the best she can. So I've also said, always available as a resource there. Next item is
Time to revisit our noise ordinance.
what? Go ahead, Councilmember London.
Thank you. Obviously, you've heard complaints the same way as I have. You heard them this evening. I hear them all the time. I happen to live on a very noisy block, and some of my neighbors attack me to tell me how terrible it is. I mean, again, what's the problem? Problem is late at night. 11 o'clock for a lot of people is too late. 12 o'clock is too late. So, number one, as a suggestion moving forward, to subtract with 12 o'clock, bring it down to 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, bring it down to 10 o'clock, where it will leave some of the problems for a lot of people. Number two, if you read the ordinance, not everybody given the ordinance, we talk about what is the permitted decibel level. And I don't know what the permitted decibel level is, so I read the ordinance. And the ordinance doesn't have a permitted decibel level. So it'll be very difficult for police to say, hey, it's too noisy. It tells you what kind of equipment they need to determine what the decibel level is. But I can't find anywhere here. Do you know where it is, Frank, a decibel level?
We do
Only
have,
with leaf blowers.
we do have a, okay, there's a couple of standards. I think
No more than 65 decibels.
decimals.
That's not in the ordinance.
Yes, it is. It's right here.
Where?
John, it's section 17-3, para 1.
However, under 17-2, the standard's plainly audible, and there's not a particular decimal.
17.3-1.
Yeah.
17.3.
Under 17.3, there is a decimal.
17.3, that's 17.2.
That's 17.3.
Okay, 17, no, that's referring to 17.3. Go to 17.3, just down the page, down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Now you go to 1, para 1,
Yeah.
the next page.
Okay. So
Shall at times be no more than
I think
65
what
decibels.
Councilmember London's
this is in a
correct.
hotel resort area.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Planned
just
unit
saying,
development has nothing to do with the residential area.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, you're correct that there is a different standard for the residential. It's plainly audible.
And there isn't anything there, you see it?
Yeah.
That's all I can tell you.
I just happened to see that one when I pulled it up. Okay,
Right
well,
there.
well, if there is one, then I agree with you. So bring back an ordinance.
So basically, things I think we should consider, again, it talks about 100 feet away, people hearing it. And that makes it very difficult for the police to enforce. Maybe because they're not going about people's backyards. So how are we
Yeah,
going?
I mean, look, I can tell you this comes from the county. This is very similar to what it was. Happy to review it with you guys.
Yeah.
I think that the officers would probably say they prefer to have the specific decimal level.
I agree.
And They have their sound meters, and that's something we can change.
No, because what the gentleman was talking about in public comments earlier about the boats in Hurricane Harbor, he's not the only resident I've heard from. And I know I've talked to the manager and talked to the chief, and they're working on this. And there is an issue with trying to get our boats back on the water with, supply chain issues. But they're working with FWC and even the Coast Guard, I think, to get, but these noise issues are real for our residents, and these people are truly, so I agree with you. And let's make it easier for our police officers to enforce the law.
So maybe we should also include something with the sound level on the water as well as for the residential area.
Right.
All I'm saying is that we should revisit this ordinance.
Ed, you've got I support you in this.
We should do this as a priority.
I agree.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not just.
Let's go.
That's where I'm coming
So
from.
bring something back.
But there was also one other comment about tennis and paddleboard.
Well, that's different. We're talking to, I think that's an issue that I think it does go to the point, you're right, about decibel levels, but at the same point.
They're not getting close to 65 decibel.
I don't know, but what I'm saying is, let's talk to the Ritz. Let's see if we can resolve that in another way rather than saying, hey.
Yeah, I think we could just help out. And
that's a different issue.
I always see tennis as more of a quiet sport.
I don't know. Have you heard some people play? Come on,
because they yell or something.
Maybe. But I think
we got to revisit it.
Bring it back.
Yeah,
Let's go.
We just got this. I think it's a good idea. There are also other points of view. Some people, but
of course.
So it's a good initiative, and we can
we'll have a
come
copy
back.
of it.
Yeah. And what I would like to do is to clarify the record, because unfortunately, some of our citizens, instead of just stating the problem, they attack somebody, and the unfortunate use of on the Hurricane Harbor thing, the police. I'm sorry, the gentleman is not here. We understand that problem. We're doing all we can. There's all kinds of issues, not only noise, but also just access. Some people just can't even get out with their boats. Some people are selling their boats, believe it or not, because they can't on the weekends get out. But I mean, I let the records, be clear that the police is doing all its kind with them. Right? Yeah, but he left, and unfortunately, he blamed the police, and that. Don't kill the messenger. We're doing the best we can. And then we can address that with him. And the other thing is, the second one practically is the Ritz-Carlton. It's a responsible citizen and a big taxpayer that we should just approach him and say, hey.
That's what's going on.
Because he said even that they don't return his calls. Because the problem is on the front now, the new thing is paddleball. And that is a lot louder. Yeah. Because, and it actually, caveat emptor doesn't apply, because when you bought in those buildings, you expected, the noise to be more or less, but now it's gone up. And also, obviously, he said that they're playing at all hours. So,
well, that's another issue, but we've got to deal with that.
I think we have consensus that we could have our manager reach out to them and see what you can do.
We have a fairly new manager who's, 3 or 4 months.
But he's old. Good. No, I mean he was here before.
Oh no, yeah. But I mean, and he's talking about me. I hear all great things about him, so I'm sure he'd do.
No, I'm talking about the new manager over at. I'm not saying he's old, although he is old.
You're talking about
I'm talking about Derek.
We have to think thoughtfully about this noise ordinance. There's a lot going on.
Let's bring it back. Let's go.
All right.
All right, Ed, your last item.
Yes, I was contacted by Plan Z Ziskovich and met with them and discussed with them where they are, what they're doing, etc. I had previously, when you brought the idea of spending $100 and some thousand to hire somebody, I suggested before we go spend $175,000 for some consultant to tell us what we want, or what we think we want. We should meet with them to see what they propose or what they're doing. And they told me they also met with Brett and they met with you, Mike. So you three are familiar with what they have.
When?
I don't know when. They told me they met with you.
Well, a long time ago, but not recently.
Exactly. Anyway, all I'm saying is that I think it would serve everybody's purpose, and especially the people in the community, because we've been afraid and say, what are they going to do? We have no idea what they're going to do. He said the cone of silence now is they can do anything they want. They can talk to anybody. So I suggest a workshop where they make their presentation, tell them what they had proposed. And so we have an idea, so we know what we like, we don't like, give them some feedback, or at least with that, go ahead and then prepare something. But at least know where they, the odds are they're going to be the bidder that's going to win. So, well, maybe not, but more than likely they will. So all I'm saying is I think it, like the same idea of not suing people and everything else collaboratively.
Listen to 'em.
I think it serves everybody's best interest that we arrange a workshop and invite them to come and make their presentation, answer our questions, and go from there. That's my suggestion. I don't know how you all feel about it.
I think in the spirit of courtesy, we'd listen to anybody.
Of course.
In the spirit of courtesy and due diligence, I'd listen to anybody.
I have no problem listening to them.
Well, why is this relevant now? I'm
Sorry?
I'm not being against it. I don't understand. Why is it relevant? It's a private entity that, you know, we have different opinions, but clearly they were not friendly to us. That would be a diplomatic term. Well, I mean, and why are we giving them prominence?
Well, you see,
again?
you say they're not friendly to us. When
Well-
meeting with them, you'll listen to what they said, that basically they met with loads of people in the village who they thought communicated, were responsible, and talking to everybody else. So from their standpoint, they were blindsided, okay?
Oh.
No,
You
that,
know,
yeah,
I'm just
okay.
telling you
No,
what they
I'm
said.
going to respectfully disagree with being blindsided.
All I'm saying to you is, kill the messenger, that's fine.
No.
I mean, I'm just.
No, I'm
repeating.
I'm absolutely fine with us putting some together. I mean,
So I'm saying, let's put something together.
The problem is, you know,
Open up to everybody.
the problem is, this is again a philosophy, okay?
Yeah.
We sit up here late at night, we talk about resources and not consultants, we come up with these great ideas, and then poof, it's another workload for our staff. I mean, putting together a workshop and all of that. So, I mean, just philosophically, from a management point of view, we tend to do that, and it's creating a bottleneck of work. I don't see the urgency, and I certainly can meet with them, but I don't see what's, I mean, what is it, a time-sensitive thing
I
here?
think the community would like to know what they actually have proposed, that's all.
Well, then they should hire, they should pay Todd a fee for one of his rooms, okay, and
Okay.
have it and call it. You believe in the private sector. I
suggestion-
believe in the private sector, and go to our community center and put together a seminar and advertise in our local islander and get a local caterer and pay for it, and we'll have it at a community meeting. They do a community meeting, it's not us pay a community meeting where we already have staff that's got hundreds of things on their head and priorities. That's how I feel. It's a philosophy of management, and I think
it's an interesting.
it's you know, I have nothing against them, but that's how I feel.
Blindsided, yeah, blindsided. I'm a little put off by blindsided.
That's my word.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I'm not going to bring it
So
up.
I would be against it.
Fine.
I think they should do it.
How does
and
everybody else feel about it?
And
I'm on the fence. I mean, you know, I'm willing to listen to them, absolutely. But to the council member's point, why are we the ones who are putting this together for them?
We basically,
I'll
very
attend.
to say our number one thing is the causeway, okay? Really.
100%. You're absolutely
and then
right.
you have somebody who is willing to tell you what they proposed, but they couldn't be before. Don't you think we ourselves and the community should know what they proposed?
I hear what you're saying.
hey, I will attend. I will attend, consistent with your request, that forum, that workshop that they put together.
Anyway,
In other contexts, the way this would happen is very simple. They would simply ask for a special presentation, and it would be granted. They'd come to a regular council meeting, and they tell us what they want us to know.
Well, I mean, to be clear, I mean, I've sat here enough they've come before you guys a number of times and
It was
given
a
a
long time ago.
presentation, so it wouldn't be
the same thing.
You guys have entertained that process before with these folks.
No. That, I just don't think that's germane, because a lot of time passed and a lot of secrecy occurred.
Yeah, there's a
And whatever happened, I don't know, 4 years ago, might or might not be current reality. We don't know.
I don't mean I don't mean that satisfied. I meant that it's not, you guys have had that happen before. You've had people come and give a presentation.
If they want to give a special presentation, they're certainly welcome.
If I
to come
were
to
their
one.
company, I would go through the expense and put a community meeting together. I don't have a problem with it. I just don't want to put more burden on our staff, period. And with that, I want to wish you all a happy Easter.
Motion to adjourn.
Happy birthday, Frank.
Thank you very much.
happy
Appreciate that.
Happy Easter.
Thank you, and happy Passover.
Frank, is today your birthday?